Okay, we're going to get started here. The board, if everybody could take their seats. Get everybody settled down. Want to get everybody settled down? Visiting can take place a little later. In the halls or outside. Thank you. Good evening. Welcome everybody to today's Elk Grove Unified Associate Board meeting. The board did meet in closed session and unanimously in favor of approving Resolution 38 to dismiss a classified employee. Today's meeting is being video recorded and be available on the district YouTube. Blue cards are available on the table outside of the boardroom if anyone wishes to address the board. If you wish to address the board, complete the card and hand it to the staff member, table to my right, and indicate whether the matter is wishes on the agenda or not on the agenda. Okay, we have the Pledge of Allegiance today. Laguna Creek High School. I want to call Miss Sarah Prosser and Principal Mr. Craig, Doug Craig, and Bobby Singh Allen will assist.
Great. Great. Invite up Sarah and your family. That would be great. All right. Laguna Creek High School has been blessed to have Sarah Prosser as a parent on our campus for the past 6 years. Her 2 children have found great success at Laguna Creek. Cheyenne LaRoque graduated in 2017 as a top 10 and full IB diploma student who is currently attending University of Southern California. Her son Brady LaRoque is a senior in the class of 2020 and is a member of the Manufacturing Production Technology Academy. Sarah has been an outstanding parent leader. Sarah has led the PTSO in planning fundraising for and running a fabulous sober grad night event. She made sure there was extra money in the PTSO account so they could support the school in other ways for staff and students. This year, PTSO has budgeted money to provide teachers on campus with mini grants to purchase items for their classrooms and to support student clubs on campus. The health of the PTSO is a direct result of Sarah's commitment. Sarah has used her experience and leadership abilities to help form the Laguna Creek Booster Club. Sarah was appointed to be the first president of the new Booster Club, and the success we have had in its first year is clearly due to her leadership and dedication to doing things the right way. Her partnership and determination have helped make great things possible for all students at Laguna Creek High School. Sarah is also a regular at Laguna Creek High School front office who always brings joy to the day during each of her visits. It has been a sincere pleasure to work with her, and we cannot express our appreciation enough for all that she has done for the Laguna Creek High School community. Please recognize Ms. Prosser. If we can get everyone to stand.
Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you like to say anything?
It has been a pleasure to spend my time volunteering at Laguna Creek High School. The caliber of teachers and the staff there is amazing, and it has been a pleasure. Thank you.
I think we're taking a picture right here.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. All right, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Another nice round of applause. Okay, we have our high school student representative report. I'd like to call on Pleasant Grove High School.
Good evening, President Espinoza, members of the board, Superintendent Hoffman, and Ms. Avalos. My name is Haley Sanfilippo.
And my name is Rishi Menon from Pleasant Grove High School, and we are honored to be here tonight.
Pleasant Grove High School's second semester has been moving forward. Students who finished the fall semester with a 2.5 GPA or higher qualified for Renaissance. Renaissance is an academic initiative program that provides students with homework passes, extra credit, and final waivers. 80% of our student body qualified for Renaissance, displaying the endless time and dedication our students put into their academics.
Moving on to our school's culture, PG has held many activities to celebrate the diversity at our school. Each week in October, we dedicated a week to a specific heritage like Filipino American Cultural Week, Punjabi Heritage Week, or Latino Heritage Week, and so many more. During lunch, students would host activities to show off their culture, such as a fashion show, to show how their culture dresses, or hand out some food samples from their country, and we even had some fun with Kahoot to learn more facts. In addition, student Rohan Menon and Vice Principal Ms. Shoup are putting together our annual Multicultural Assembly on January 15th, which showcases more cultures through incredible performances.
Our annual Kindness Week took place all last week, and the ASB class was very busy working on preparing it for the entire month of November. We have every student fill out a star and make a wish for other students on campus. The ASB students go through all the stars looking for positive comments and keeping an eye out for signs of sadness that the students might share. Anything that signifies that a student might need help emotionally immediately gets addressed by our counselors. We believe that we might have saved at least one life in the process this year. As part of the process, we deliver over 400 gifts to students on campus, from things as small as flowers and candy bars to Chromebooks. As part of that week, we recognize 10 students from each grade as our kindness royalty. These students, who are nominated by teachers as the kindness kids on campus, we recognize them in class and at lunch. They receive various little gifts, a pizza-free lunch, and a free ticket to our winter homecoming.
PG's annual talent show was held on December 13th. It showcased many amazing talented students from our Eagles, and some of the money we raised goes to help fund our red carpet dance, a special needs prom that we host in February.
On October 17th, students Lexi Waddell and Claudia Munoz organized and hosted our first annual Unity Day this school year. Unity Days are intended to break down barriers and create common ground among our student family, with the intention of focusing on the idea of caring and meeting other students. Students participate in activities that give them an opportunity to display their emotional and personal beliefs and compare them to many of their peers. It helps the attendees see that difficulties they may face are common amongst their peers. The students develop new friendships and appreciation for others they may spend the day with.
Our school is hosting our 6th annual Meet Me at the Red Carpet Dance, a special night for our Eagles with special needs and those from around the district on February 15th. Pleasant Grove students Sierra Kimball and Christina Bum have taken charge of an event and are organizing the entire night. Other students that are invited are special needs students from Florin, Laguna Creek, and Sheldon High Schools. At PG, we believe that all students, no matter how many differences we have, all deserve a night to celebrate. It is a night to display and give back to the many students who are not always recognized.
On October 22nd, we held our 4th annual All-Star Eagles Unified Sports Basketball game featuring ILS and Pathways students in a fun event where a mix of the classes with volunteer student athletes played a friendly after-school competition as teammates. Students, staff, and families packed our gym to support the kids and were entertained by both the students playing basketball and student cheerleaders.
Our athletes have continued to impress Pleasant Grove as well as the community with their performances. Our football team made the playoffs for the first time in 5 years. They had an astounding year, but lost to Monterey Trail in the first round. We are looking forward to continued improvement next year. The women's varsity volleyball team continued their history of competitive success. They also made the playoffs and won their first playoff game, eventually losing to Oak Ridge in the semifinal in the 5th set of a highly competitive match. The golf team made the playoff as a team and reached the Masters tournament.
The start of the new year and second semester is going to be one for the books, and we hope to carry the success and excitement through the end of the year to graduation for our seniors in short 5 months at Golden One Arena. Thank you for listening. It is an honor and a pleasure to show off our school. Go Eagles.
Thank you. Good report. Laguna Creek High School.
Good evening, President Avalos, Superintendent Hoffman, and members of the board. My name is Caden Ellison.
And I'm Destiny Miller, and we'd like to share the amazing Cardinal activities and what's been happening at the Nest. Starting our school year, we recognized our outstanding Cardinals academic achievements at our Fall Academic Awards Night. Our new sophomores, juniors, and seniors were treated to a night of cake, jazz, and raffles for maintaining above a 3.5 GPA. Following this amazing night, we welcomed our feeder elementary schools' VAPA programs to our Arts Impact Day, showing them what they can expect in high school. It was a fun day of painting, photo booths, and sculpting. On a less exciting and fun note, our school offered the annual PSAT to freshmen through juniors to prepare for the SAT. And our hard-at-work IB sophomores are preparing to present their MYP projects as the year progresses.
That being said, our academies are already well into full swing, with numerous community projects and field trips. Our Green Energy Technology Academy is already planning for international projects later this year. They are currently building solar suitcases to send to developing cities in the Philippines and preparing students to attend an exchange program in Brazil. Another large project from our Green Energy Technology Academy is a hydrogen-powered RC car project and race sponsored by Toyota. Our team will build a car and compete against other schools. Our Manufacturing Production Technology Academy has been hard at work with the Tiny House project, racking up over 3,000 volunteer hours in the last year supporting veterans in our community. Also, our MPTA has worked hand in hand with the ILS program, developing adult and workplace skills, presently designing and building cutting boards and birdhouses. Our Sports Career Academy has been blossoming with HOSA leadership and competitions, growing skills in the field of sports medicine. Working directly in the field, attending field trips to local hockey games and aquatic centers, gaining firsthand experience of a sports medicine professional.
Back to the Nest and freshman orientation were both successful in a way of providing helpful information to not only students but their parents. Soon after followed our club rush, where students new and old were able to explore their interests by talking to club leaders and signing up for things that piqued their interest. Our first bigger event of the year was our Welcome Back rally and dance, a way for newcomers to get a better feel for the school and be able to create a memorable first dance. The month of October was a busy one for ASB, as we planned our homecoming rally on the 10th and homecoming dance on the 12th. Both were incredibly successful and fun, with a Disney villain themed in our annual homecoming float construction contest. The class of 2020 took the win for the 4th year in a row. As we entered the season of giving, we were able to give back to the community during the fall season with our Triggered Can and Cans Giving canned food drives. Our outstanding drama club put on a superb show with the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime, our fall play that raised the bar for our future LC productions. Our last event before the Thanksgiving break was our annual Creek Rock lip sync contest, an opportunity for our Cardinals to show off their skills to pop hits, and a surprise appearance from our principal, Mr. Craig, dancing to Blanco Brown's The Get Up. This event was a can't-miss event with a good cause, as all proceeds were donated to the Elk Grove Food Bank. And in this last week, our annual Tree of Hope collection students and staff donated over $3,400 to families in need.
Our fall athletics went extremely well this year, with our women's water polo team ending the season with an outstanding 20-2 record, making playoffs, and our women's volleyball team finished with the season in playoffs with a 17-6 record. Our varsity football team went 7-3 overall, including a win over McClatchy for our homecoming night. Another great night of football was Laguna Creek High School's 25th anniversary, which was celebrated with cake and an Athletic Hall of Fame induction of alumni from the first 5 years of Laguna Creek history. Along with amazing performances in our fall athletics, our marching band won 3rd place in brass, 1st place in color guard, 1st place in open class field show, and to add icing on top of the cake, they won visual performance sweepstakes at the Franklin Band Review. As our Laguna Creek Cardinals study for finals, we can't wait for the winter break. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to recognize the fine principals at Laguna Creek High School, Doug Craig, and Pleasant Grove High School, Tegan Kupplinger. Is she? Oh, there she is. Okay, students, you're free to leave now. Do your homework. Okay, we're going to go to recognition of No Excuses, Go to School Attendance Campaign, a poster. I want to call on Sandeep to come up, and she will be assisted with Ms. Sheriff Espinoza.
So we've had excellent attendance, it looks like, tonight. This is wonderful. I'm going to give a couple of instructions since there's 32 poster winners for the attendance campaign. So first of all, a big round of applause for all of those who contributed. Thank you. So what we'll do is we're going to call each student up by their last name. The student is going to shake hands, and then they're going to accept their award, and they'll go to the up here in the staging area, and we'll take one big picture at the end, and all parents are invited to take a picture at the end as well, and if you want to do single ones, you can at the end. All right, are you ready? All right, cool. I'll hand it over to Sandeep.
Good evening, Board President Chet Madison Sr., members of the Board, Superintendent Hoffman, and Ms. Avalos. Tonight, I am here before you to recognize this year's winners of the No Excuses Go to School Attendance Campaign poster contest. This is the 13th year of this successful campaign, which supports students being at school every day. Elementary and secondary students were challenged to illustrate the phrase, on time, on point, on schedule. 32 winning illustrations were selected. All artwork will be printed as posters, which will be distributed to promote student attendance at all of our schools. Winners, when I call your names by last names, please come up to be recognized from this side. Please join us in recognizing the 2019 poster contest winners. Cassandra Aguirre, Union House Elementary. Jason Alvarez, Samuel Kennedy Elementary School. Shazira Alvarez, Valley High School. Leslie Angeles, Monterey Trail High School. Mr. Thatch, if you could come up for Leslie, if Leslie is not in, that would be great. Holly Brandon, Dillard Elementary. Melanie Cerna, Marion Mix Elementary. Katia Duras, Prairie Elementary. Jolene Dorton, Samuel Jackman Middle School. Mr. Anderson, if you could come and accept the award, please. Andrea Franesca, James Rudder Middle School. Jocelyn Gonzalez, Edward Harris Middle School. Caden Granado, Catherine Albiani Middle School. Matthew Ho, Stone Lake Elementary School. Vivian Kim, Sheldon High School. Brittany Lamb, Fight Elementary. Abigail Lynn, Franklin High School. Logan Mann, Arlene Hine Elementary. Zoe Milburn, Carroll Elementary. Mr. Jack Ferrara is representing for Carroll Elementary. Mila Moore, Florence Markoffer Elementary. Mira Navalta, Toby Johnson Middle School. Principal, Vice Principal. They're at that fundraiser at Chipotle on Elk Grove Boulevard. I saw it on Facebook. Callie Newfield, Raymond Case Elementary School. Wendy Nguyen, Irene B. West Elementary School. Milan Nguyen, James McKee Elementary. Nolan Nguyen, Roy Herberger Elementary. Sakaya Kwa, Anna Kirchgater Elementary. Brandon Kwan, Casunas Oaks High School. Ezelaine Ramos, Sunrise Elementary. Olivia Samble, Robert McGarvey Elementary. Olivia Tong, Elliott Ranch Elementary. Andrew Weber, Ellen Fikert Elementary. Carolee Wilson, Elk Grove Elementary. Andisha Zahir, Mary Tsukamoto Elementary. Ellie Zhu, Franklin Elementary. And last but not least, Brianna Adams from Jesse Baker School, who is not in attendance this evening. Thank you so much, everyone. Parents, feel free to come up and take your special pictures.
You know, feel free, parents, come up and take pictures. You know, Dr. Ladd started this program. Did he? Yeah, way back, yeah. Really nice. It's been very successful, too. Yeah. It's good for the kids.
Yeah. Listen, do me a favor.
Yeah, Vivian!
Is waiting for a response.
How'd you contact him?
On her. Or text. Her text. Yeah.
Text?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, not her email, her text. Always get me too.
I know.
Yeah, her text.
She didn't go to school this morning because she stayed up so late finishing her agri science project. Reese got over 100% one class, so she didn't have to take the final. I mean, she was seriously, they're doing nothing in her first two classes. I said, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Well, okay, yeah.
Okay, let's give another round of applause.
Can do this together.
Okay. we'll go down.
So many neat kids, huh?
Very good. Good accomplishment. Pardon me?
This crowd might need to be reminded that there are other things going on.
Yeah, I'm trying to let him, yeah. We'll give a few minutes to clear out. All right, folks, if we can go ahead out in the hall and visit. We're going to move to our next item very shortly. That's it. Okay, we're going to move to our next item. We'll move to our next item, please. If you have finished, please move to the outside. Yeah. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move to Arnold Adreani Elementary School, our 2019 National Blue Ribbon School. And call on Dr. Bendy Graywall. Mr. Fortuna, we'll go down.
Hey, wow, what a team. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, President Madison, members of the board, Superintendent Hoffman, and Ms. Avalos. We're here to recognize the Arnold Adreani Elementary team led by Principal Mark Vieira and Vice Principal Kyle Harrison. Could you both raise your hands so everyone knows where you are? Okay, great. Thank you. For your hard work resulting in the award-winning application naming Arnold Adreani Elementary a National Blue Ribbon School. Then the National Blue Ribbon School program recognizes schools based on their overall academic excellence or their progress in closing the achievement gap among student groups. This award affirms the hard work of the students, educators, and family and community in creating a safe and welcoming school where students master challenging content. In November, the Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos, recognized 360 schools nationwide as National Blue Ribbon Schools for 2019. And these schools demonstrated that all students can achieve at high levels. The Department of Education formally recognized Arnold Adreani Elementary as one of the recipients, and they were recognized at the Gaylord National Convention Center in Maryland on November 14th and 15th. Mr. Vieira, Mr. Hoffman, and Mrs. Frank had the honor of attending that ceremony. and the National Blue Ribbon School flag gracing the school building is a widely recognized symbol of exemplary teaching and learning. Tonight, we have the honor to congratulate and honor the Arnold Adreani Elementary team. Thank you.
I'm just assuming we're jumping up here. I had to put it on.
It's a great accomplishment. Okay, we'll move to the certification and recognition of career technical education, academies and pathways. Call on, oh, they're already up there. Cathy Hamilton. Hi, and Susan.
We've got a timeline we're trying to, meet.
Okay, good. And it was assisted by Ms. Singh Allen.
Oh, hello. Thank you. Come on down. Yeah. Thank you, President Madison, board members, Superintendent Hoffman, and Ms. Avalos. We are here tonight to ask that you recognize our high-quality CTE pathways and academies. This is a process that we go through every year to give you the opportunity and the community the opportunity to recognize all of the hard work that our academies and pathways put into going over and beyond simply being great teachers, as if that isn't enough. The work that we do in the College and Career Connections Department, including our academies and pathways, is part of E4. It's part of the high-quality curriculum and instruction element, as well as family and community engagement. It helps meet our district strategic goals associated with high-quality classroom instruction and curriculum. And the work is exemplified by our graduate profile. Students learn many skills in our academies and pathways, which prepare them to succeed once they graduate from Elk Grove Unified. So, what are we doing tonight? As you know, a site can offer high-quality CTE electives, standalone courses taught by excellent teachers. But to be a high-quality pathway, teachers, administrators, counselors, classified staff all must commit to participate in a rigorous, continuous improvement process that are exemplified by the recognition that you're going to give tonight. We are going to introduce you quickly tonight to one academy that is actually moving up from the gold level to the platinum level. We are also going to ask that you extend certification of 11 of our career academies that continue to meet the high levels of quality performance that have been certified in prior years. And finally, we'll ask that you recognize 31 academies and pathways that continue to demonstrate progress toward achieving quality goals that they set and update every year. Before I pass this over to Sue Hubbard to introduce our teachers and our teams, I just want to remind you that even though we talk about 4 different quality levels, we need to emphasize that participating in the CTE continuous improvement process at any level is a commitment to perform at a level of excellence that exceeds expectations for high-quality instruction. In other words, we ask that CTE teachers meet the high-quality instruction measures expected of all EGUSD teachers and go beyond. The same is true for sites. Master scheduling, for example, must allow time for teachers to be to work as teams, reflective teams, and for classes to be sequenced in a manner that gives students the opportunity to complete a CTE pathway. Students need to be released from class sometimes to go off-site for work-based learning activities. At the same time, teachers must build and maintain relationships with business and post-secondary partners. They must supervise students in a myriad of activities that fall outside the school day and often on the weekend. They must maintain and repair equipment, update curriculum to stay abreast of industry trends, and ensure that their industry skills and knowledge also are current. So with that, I'm going to hand this off to Sue, who's going to introduce our newest platinum level academy.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, I'm here tonight to introduce to you Biotech Academy. They came before you last year as a Gold Academy, and through diligent teamwork, reflection, and quality action planning, the team has moved their program to Platinum as validated by the district, site, and community. Please congratulate the Biotech team. Let me tell you a little bit about Biotech. Biotech Academy was founded in 2001 and became a California Partnership Academy in 2008 and 2009. Come on up. They have 313 students in their academy. In March of 2019, the Biotech Academy was recognized by the California Department of Education as a Distinguished Academy, an award given to only 2% of academies in California. This prestigious recognition was earned through rigorous audit of all program components required by California Education Code. 2 biotech students are part of our new Student Ambassador Program, which is a result of our CTE branding through Pam Daly and our Ford NGL partnership. These students represent 29 pathways at the 9 comprehensive high schools with the goal of building a CTE student community of practice in our district through cross-district participation. The Student Ambassador Program is an additional opportunity to foster leadership skills in our students. Many of the students are here tonight to support our academies and pathways, and I want to give a quick shout out. Here to share a few key takeaways as Biotech Academy students are our student ambassadors, Anna Guzman and David Nam. Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Anna Guzman. I am a 4th-year member of the Sheldon High School Biotechnology Academy and a senior at Sheldon High School.
My name is David Nam. I am a junior at Sheldon High School and a 3rd-year member of the Biotech Academy.
So the one word that comes to mind when I think about my experience in the Biotechnology Academy is opportunity. Through my 4 years in the program, I've had the opportunity to participate in the Teen Biotech Challenge, where I got to design and build a website from scratch on a topic of my choice. I also had the opportunity to participate in an 8-week internship at the UC Davis Institute for Regenerative Cures, where I worked on a project under the HIV team there at that program, and I was able to implement and execute my own project through their program. I've also had many other opportunities through the Biotech Academy. Day to day, I've had so much fun engaging and working as a team in the program. We have incredible teachers, and I've learned so much through my 4 years in the program. I've had opportunities to work with children through our outreach presentations at the elementary school and middle schools, and I have had so much fun. This year in particular, I've been able to design and implement my own research project through our Capstone Senior Community Connected Learning Capstone Project.
In addition to the in-class activities that Anna mentioned, Biotech also offers its students with a multitude of activities outside of the classroom. For instance, many of our students apply to the one-week health academy at the UC Davis School of Medicine, or they can attend the pre-health symposium offered at UC Davis. Currently, some of our students are applying for a paid internship at Kaiser Permanente.
Across our 4 years in the program, we have had the opportunity to be exposed to some amazing mentors who are patient, supportive, and so kind, and take efforts to get to know us not only as students, but also as people. I know that I speak for David, as well as the other 300 members of our academy, when I say that we are so grateful for their efforts that they put in making our educational experience really incredible. And I am just really glad that I've been in this program and really feel fortunate to have had these opportunities. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Really good. Ms. Duncan, can you come forward, please, as principal?
Yes, thank you. As Cathy mentioned, it's one thing about the academies and pathways going through the process, but it's also the site support. And without the support of Ms. Duncan, this wouldn't be possible. So in addition to the amazing work that Biotech is doing, I'd like to recognize our other academies and pathways at our sites. As I read your name, if you'll mind, just come on up this way, shaking hands with Ms. Bobby Singh Allen, and then heading up there to the podium, and then we'll do one big picture at the end. How's that? First would be Cosumnes Oaks High School, our Culinary Arts Academy, a Gold Award. And our silver recognition goes to broadcast journalism, empowering entrepreneurs, graphic design, medical careers, robotics, and programming. At Elk Grove High School, we would like to extend certification to the sustainable, extend certification to the Sustainable Agriculture and Green Education Pathway, our Technology and Digital Arts Pathway, and silver recognition to our Automotive and Culinary Arts Pathway. At Florin High School, we'd like to extend our certification to the Agricultural Tech Academy, gold extended certification to the Law and the World Academy, silver recognition to the Audio and Music Pathway, Culinary Arts Pathway, and the Information Technology Academy, and a bronze recognition to our Automotive Technology Pathway. At Franklin High School, our silver awards, we'd like to recognize the Design Arts Pathway, the Digital Media Pathway, the Green Renewable Energy Engineering Network Academy, and the School of Technology, Engineering, and Media Academy for Information Technology. Bronze recognition for the Animation Pathway. At Laguna Creek High School, our gold awards, we'd like to extend certification to the Green Energy Technology Academy, the Sports Careers Academy, and silver recognition to our Fashion Design and Merchandising Pathway. At Monterey Trail High School, we would like to, for our platinum, we would like to extend certification to the Design and Technology Academy, and silver recognition to the Animation Pathway, Fashion Design and Merchandising Pathway, and the Sports, Music, and Entertainment Marketing Pathway. At Pleasant Grove High School, for platinum, we would like to extend certification to the Innovative Design Engineering Academy, gold extended certification to the Digital Media Academy, and silver recognition to the Agriculture Pathway and Biomedical Academy.
Oh, that's big.
At Sheldon High School, we've already recognized our Biotech Academy, but our silver recognition goes to our agricultural pathway, arts work for animation pathway, computer science object-oriented developer empowerment pathway, and our creators, entrepreneurs, originators pathway. And bronze recognition to arts work 2D graphics. And of course, Valley High School, our silver recognition would go to engineering technology pathway, entrepreneurship innovation pathway, fire and emergency services pathway, and the Health Tech Academy. We'd really like to thank the board very much for all your support.
Thank you. Good job. Wonderful opportunity for a lot of kids.
Where's my coaches? Coaches, come on up. Susan, come on,
We need risers.
If you guys are, wait. President Madison, with your permission, we'd like to take a moment. Okay.
Yeah.
So we know that Ms. Cathy Hamilton is near retirement, so we've got some words to say for you. Cathy Hamilton has served as Director of College and Career Connections for Elk Grove Unified School District for the last 9 years, overseeing various programs including career technical education, adult education, and charter schools. Cathy's career in education began when she landed a job as an ESL instructional assistant, not knowing what ESL was, in the Fullerton Unified School District 1983. Thinking she would be given the task of teaching assistants, Cathy was surprised to be handed a book, given a small class of 6 EL students, and told to read with them on her first day. As with many educators, a love for working with students began, and Cathy's career choice took a left turn. In the 36 years since that first day, Cathy has served in numerous other roles in various districts and agencies, including Elk Grove Unified School District, in a wide range of capacities. While Cathy has always worked diligently to serve the students in the Elk Grove Unified community, what she takes most pride in is in the impact she has had on the development and growth of employees with whom she has worked. Through Cathy's leadership, coaching, and capacity building, she has created and mentored a team of administrators, coaches, and teachers to provide one of the leading career technical education programs in the state of California. Congratulations, Cathy.
Thank you. This is a wonderful award, but it's not about me. It's about all of this. And anybody who has the opportunity to go into one of these classrooms is hooked from the moment you step into them. As many of you know, maybe you don't know, I did not seek this job. I was perfectly content being the Director of Adult Education. I was asked to take this job, and because I had served in it as an interim for several months and got into some of these classrooms, I said to Tina Pinna, how can I say no? This is the most incredible thing in all my years in education. So I just want to thank all of these teachers for what you do, and administrators for supporting it, because it ain't easy. I know it isn't easy. We ask a lot of you, the state asks a lot of you, but boy, do your students get to achieve amazing things. So thank you for letting me work with you for the last 9 years.
Cathy, on the behalf of the Board of Education, we wish you the very best on your retirement, and very well deserved. Thank you. Okay, with that, I'm going to ask, we're going to ask for a motion to certify the Career Technical Education Gold and Platinum Level Academies.
So moved.
I'll second.
It's been moved in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. You get it? You got it? Okay. Oh. I didn't know he stepped away.
Yeah, I didn't notice either.
Okay, I want to call on Ms. Shannon Hayes for the Finance Committee Annual Report.
Good evening, President Madison, members of the board, Superintendent Hoffman, and Ms. Avalos. Tonight, our Finance Committee has their report that they've prepared for you, and I'm going to invite our chairperson, Ms. Angie Wainscard.
Thank you.
Hi, it's so nice to be back with you this year. We got a good, quick presentation for you. I'm not going to read every word on the PowerPoint, thank goodness, so I hope you can just follow along with me a little bit. Let's see if I can figure this thing out. So we have 9 committee members. There are 3 at large, 1 appointed by the superintendent, 5 by board members, and 2 open positions. And the open positions are by Ms. Chaida Espinoza and Ms. Singh Allen. Oh, I'm so excited. Thank you. It might seem a little crazy, but we're really excited to have more people and more input. It's always helpful. Okay, so as you know, our purpose is to review the annual budget, the interim financials, to give our opinion on district financial strategies, whether you want them or not, and to identify problems and refer them back to the board. We are also an ad hoc resource as requested. So we had 9 meetings throughout the year on various topics. So in January, we met with Superintendent Hoffman. It's always a good meeting for him to introduce kind of this, gives us a little bit of the state of the district and what's happening. It was illuminating to hear the different discussions about the district reorganization and how interest-based bargaining works. And then we also introduced the new board members to each other and started helping them learn what the committee does and how to make our meetings more efficient. So then we went in, also in February, we went straight to getting them their feet very wet. We needed the meeting to review how the district works, and we did a thorough brainstorm and deliberation so that we could choose all those 9 different meeting topics. Okay, so in March we heard from safety and security, mainly about their statistics, how they operate on their budget, and the self-evaluation process that they were starting. And we think it's wise for them to continue to invest in community outreach. They said that they might need more funding, but we think this is a high priority for the district, that safety and security continue to make those outreach efforts. We are supportive of their collaboration between them and other departments, focusing on social and emotional wellness. You'll see this as a theme in our report tonight because it's such an issue right now in our nation and especially also in our district. So we'd love to see the results of the self-evaluation survey, but we'll work on that for this coming year. So then in April, we heard from Christine Hakito. She gave us a great and thorough presentation, and we are very strong proponents of quantifying information and the work that they do. So that's really important. We love the way that they are able to quantify. So we'd like to see more tracking of those students K through 12 to see if the program improvements that we are all working so hard on are working. And then we'd like to see more data on staff retention and also more departments added to that program evaluation process. I know it can be kind of a beastly chore, but we'd love to see that because we believe in the data. Lastly, we'd like to see more transparency to give clarity for how those outcomes are measured. Like we learned that night that PBIS is measured by the suspension rate. And I'm sure there are other ways it's measured, but that was one thing we learned. And so that might help us to understand the data better. Okay, in May, we had a good presentation on pre-K through 6 and a lot of questions that the committee members had asked. We believe the high priorities, we agree with them that the high priorities are on grade level reading and class size reduction, and we support the money spent on those efforts. We appreciate their efforts to quantify the pre-K through 6 student progress and the Common Core. And then we encourage the department to continue seeking their creative methods to address those social and emotional wellness of those students. And it's we're asking a big thing, but I think that there are more methods to creatively address them within the budget. Last, we support their efforts to seek funding to expand preschool availability. In June, we heard, I think we had our longest meeting. We heard from special ed and special ed transport, and those are like 2 meetings in and of themselves. Very important things happening in our district there. We commend the special ed department's efforts to create the unique programs for individual students, and we're grateful that they're willing to do such good work there. We support their in-house training of special ed students, of their staff, and we are concerned about the rising need and the stagnant funding, as I'm sure you all are, but we can see that is happening. We support the paid training of the special ed substitutes, and we encourage the continued and thorough examination of the necessity of paraeducators on a case-by-case basis. And just to clarify, just to be sure everyone understands, we think paraeducators are extremely important, but we want to make sure that we're using them in the most effective way since we use them with individual students. In the busing department for special ed and transportation, we saw they have a lot of challenges with managing the growth, often with the mandate, but not the funding for special ed transportation. So we support the paid training of bus drivers with the new adaptations that they're making to that program to keep it economically efficient for the district. We encourage better collaboration, though, between transportation, special ed, pre-K, and secondary ed to help the schedule to be appropriate. Sometimes the money spent there is great for, let's say, a minimum day or a reverse minimum day. And we're not saying those things shouldn't happen, but we need to just identify that they are really worth it, maybe associate a dollar cost with the schedule and how the decisions that we're making. And then third, we very strongly support reevaluating and limiting curb-to-curb service whenever possible. When it's needed, we support it, but we want those to be reevaluated as frequently as possible because that's expensive, can run as much as $15,000 for a student in 1 year. So That's serious. In September, we had a really thorough report by Ms. Hayes about employee compensation, and we are hopeful for the new possibility of state funding for pre-K education, very specifically for the students with an IEP. And we're pleased to see how well we did on the report. I don't know what CADIE stands for, but it's the one that compares, just for everyone who doesn't know either, it's a report that compares districts to each other based on size and area and other things. And we really were excited to see that our district fared well in that report, that we were spending money wisely. Okay, in October, it's our favorite meeting of the year by far, when the student representatives from the schools come. And we asked them 3 questions. I'm going to read the questions because it's important to help understand the answers. So question 1, the question was, do you feel the district spends funds wisely on students? Why or why not? We had some common themes coming back to us. The students that came varied in why they were there. A lot of them were ASB students or students that were treasurers. And then sometimes there was just a kid from the school who was willing to come. So that might give you some background with their answers. But number 1, they felt that there was a lack of transparency in school spending, and I could see from experience being a parent and also being involved with the district that there was maybe some misunderstanding about what the district funds in relation to sports and clubs and why football might get more money than the club, you know, the art club or whatever. So we thought it would be wise for the district to make an effort to better educate kids. And I don't know if that's possible, because I think if someone had come to me when I was a 9th grade student and said they wanted to talk to me about budget finances in the district, I would have been asleep. But we really support the idea of helping the schools to educate the students on fairness, because it's bringing problems, and I don't think they are necessarily problems that we can't be addressing with them. I think they'll appreciate the answers, and we can treat them like adults in this scenario. So, question 2, some of the common themes. College and career centers are helpful. The seniors thought they could do more outreach earlier, and that they needed more attention and funding preparing students for careers that are not just college, and we strongly support the spending on that. We believe in preparing students for practical adult skills, just like those kids did. So, we have a few more strategies I'll discuss in just a minute. And then question 3 was, how comfortable are you in your school environment? Why or why not? We tried to leave it broad on purpose because we wanted to know what issues they would bring up. And a lot of them brought up mental health support and social and emotional wellness support, crisis management. One of the students said something really poignant. He said, the student population is changing and struggling more with mental health issues, but the district is not changing to address this. Now, I'm not here to tell you whether you're changing or not to address this, but that was his perception. So we'd love to see the continued efforts in that area. Just to cover quickly our other suggestions, it would be great to see some mandatory professional development for teachers and staff about mental health and crisis management. We think that could go a long way. Students had their anecdotal stories about how they felt their teachers may or may not be trained in those areas. And we also believe that we need the outside-the-box plan for transparency in funding, and especially at that local level. The schools should consider their rules about how students enter and exit academies. Kids complained about that a little. We saw that awesome group of academies tonight, and I hate to see those negative feelings happening among students when they can be addressed and happen efficiently. And then last, the study to determine the efficacy of career centers and counselors, how they're connecting with students, especially in the younger grades, would be useful. So those are the meetings we had this year, and we appreciate your willingness to let us check out the finances in the district. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for a wonderful report. The board, any comments or questions? Mr. Fortuna?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Listening to the report, it raises an issue that I've had for actually the last few years. The board's finance committee has, as Angie showed, many specific requirements. And certainly one of the most important is, to me, is this annual report.
Mm-hmm.
Where I get uncomfortable, really uncomfortable, is that there's no opportunity for the board to meet with the committee to talk about how some of the suggestions that have been made are being addressed, because that's a communication piece. It's important. It's not enough for you to say you should do this if we're not doing it or if we are doing it. Either way, you should know what's happening. And to have discussions relative to two things: the professional development and how we address the budget process. So I really do think it would be helpful, so that as the Finance Committee continues to work and provide information to the board, they know that it's not going in a hole. Because without any interaction, I think I would feel that way. It's just, they did their job, thank you, and we put it on a shelf. We don't do that. We do use these. They are important. That's why we fought so hard to change the Finance Committee and looked at what type of support we would want from them. So I'm really making that as a suggestion to our current president for the next 10 or 15 minutes. And then the new one can...
Your notice, apparently.
Then the new one, whoever that is, can please seriously look at that issue of perhaps asking for volunteers from the board who can meet with representatives of the Finance Committee so that we can talk about the issues.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Sharis-Espinoza?
So 2 things. First off, thank you so much for your report. The meeting with the student representatives is also my favorite meeting of yours. Yes. It just seems like we get the most valuable insights from that. I like to notice how often they track what we have identified as the needs. Although last year they felt very strongly about social emotional needs, yes. And I think they were emphasizing it. I think I was surprised by kind of the degree, but you know, this year I feel like we're tracking a little bit better. What they're identifying as priorities. But I definitely want to second Carmen's suggestion that I don't know what the mechanism would be, but I would love for us to have, I guess, a response in some way to the work that the Finance Committee is doing. So whatever shape that takes, I definitely like that idea.
I have a suggestion. Could I make it?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm thinking even just a simple email about an issue that really meant something to you, to me, or to Ms. Hayes that we could share at our January meeting would go a long way. I think that would be helpful. Just even if you picked just one thing that you feel like you're really working on, then we could get back to people so we don't say every year, what about that social emotional wellness? What's happening there? So I think that could be useful.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And I think also that goes along with our LCAP process when we talk about our parents and students and the students that's participating in this committee, so we can know ahead of time too to build it in. Ms. Albiani?
Thank you for your work. Thank you for all the committee's work. I appreciate the Finance Committee. I agree with my colleagues. Communication to Finance, finding a way to make that more regular could be beneficial in both ways, either through visiting, having I don't know if we would be interested in having a committee. We've had committees for different meetings and choosing 2 people off a board that might visit the group.
Yeah, I was just thinking through a subcommittee might be a better way to do it, to make sure we stay within Brown Act, because if each of you were to communicate individually, all you could do is communicate your individual thing. You couldn't have a discussion amongst each other and come to a conclusion, but we could set up a subcommittee that could maybe we set up a time where there was a follow-up. So we can work through that, but I think a subcommittee might be the way to do it.
And we'll do committee review at the beginning of the year.
We will.
So So we'll think about that. So thank you very much.
Similar comments. I appreciate the information. I see that you've been meeting ongoing in the committee's work for 9 meetings, and I think that's very important to hear what the district is currently working on when you're looking at safety and security and looking at the different departments like research and evaluation as well. You know, I appreciate the comments from the students and also the suggestions from the committee. I know in January, we're always talking about board priorities or around that timeline in our budget discussion. But even for, I think, Finance Committee to even see just the total process, how we go through vetting things, also from cabinet and recommendations, I think would be helpful to even be aware of that process. So hopefully, like you said, coming down the road, we will be able to communicate more efficiently and find a way to productively communicate between each other, so that way we can help to identify and address and what we're currently doing as far as program with some of the questions that have come up. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Excellent presentation. Are there other committee members here today we can recognize? Thank you for your service. I know that you take, great, that you take time away from your families to provide us this feedback. I will just differ a little bit from the nuance of what my colleagues have mentioned of board representation on the committee or participation. I personally like that you have an independent voice. I would hate to influence it in any way, but I would certainly want the feedback or the questions being answered. I think that's really the most important part. So if there's a way of sharing in real time those areas that need to be addressed with whoever is the board president and clerk, who then can bring the rest of the board up to speed in terms of communication. But I would hate to influence this in any way, because sometimes when you bring a board member to any committee, it changes the free-flowing dialogue. It's been my experience. So I don't want that to be disruptive. I want you to have those courageous conversations. That's the opinion of one. My colleagues may decide to have a subcommittee, but I personally think your independent voice is why you're there. We serve on numerous other committees already, so I just think that the work that you've done historically has been tremendous. But I do think that those concerns, those questions, those areas that need to be addressed in a timely manner and at least bring us aware, because a number of the items that you've addressed in terms of that require perhaps some more attention, I do think that we have work in a lot of those areas, but students and maybe committee members may not be aware.
Yes.
So I think getting you the information is more important, so that you don't feel that there's unaddressed areas. So if we can figure out sort of those nuances, that would be my suggestion, rather than create another subcommittee and having board input in these. I personally like the independence of this and providing the feedback. I also, now I will share my appointee. I want to thank Shari Wilson for her past. Looks like she attended most of the meetings, and then she did have to step down for personal and family needs. So my appointee is Miss Nikisha Henry, which is not a stranger to our district. She is a powerful and passionate advocate for students with disabilities. So I just really support and parent advocates who are out there championing not only for their children, but for those who need additional support. So she's been a tremendous ally over the last several years, and I am nominating her as my appointee. So just letting you all know that that vacancy has now been filled.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, just want to thank you for a wonderful report. We always look forward to it towards the end of the year, and we appreciate all the hard work that you guys put into it. And
Thank you. Do you care if I give one more suggestion?
Yes.
I remembered that someone in the committee had suggested that we could all, after a meeting, just give a mini report to the person that has appointed us. And so then that might be another way to have that dialogue, because then they could address issues as needed. So
yeah,
I get those on a regular basis from Michael. He's really, I mean, we talk all the time about.
And I'll defer when Ms. Hayes, you're together, one way or another, we can get the information on a timely manner.
Thank you.
Yeah, again, if I can speak up, my concern is that issue of information. with respect to what we are doing to address the recommendations and or what we're not doing and what we may plan on doing. It's not about, it's not to convince anybody of anything, but it is just that sharing. You brought this up. This is what we're doing. You brought this up. We're not doing this, but this is what we could do kind of thing to address it. So it's information.
Good. Very well. We appreciate it. And Mr. Mendenhall as well back there. We appreciate all your hard work. Thank you. Okay, we'll bring on Ms. Hayes again on the annual audit, the 2018-19 annual audit.
Good evening again. I'd like to introduce Mr. Matt Nethaway from our audit firm, Crow. He's going to present tonight our 2018-19 district audit, as well as the performance and financial statements for Measure M.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. And first, let me apologize. I fell a little victim to the season, and hopefully my voice will hang out here with us for the next 25, 30 minutes, however long you want to talk about. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. The audit report is a 92-page report, and I am happy to tell you that there's one page that I think is going to tell you a lot of information, and we'll start there. That's on page 87. The audit involves three main areas. The first one is the financial statement audit. The second is a federal awards audit, and the third is a state compliance audit. For each of those, we render an opinion on the financial statement, an opinion on federal compliance, and an opinion on state compliance. And there's individual pages throughout the report where you can read how the accountants have put that opinion together. But the key is, for the financial statements, we've issued an unmodified opinion. That's a clean audit opinion, and we're indicating that the financial statements are fairly presented. We also indicate that there were no material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, or non-compliance that's material to the financial statement. Again, all very positive indicators and what you'd like to see when you open up this report. The next section is on federal awards. You also see that we had no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies to report, nor was there any material non-compliance. We've issued an unmodified opinion on the federal compliance, which again is what you'd be looking for. And we also list out what program. The programs are determined to be either type A or type B. The more significant programs are type A, and that's by dollar value, how significant they are to the program. I just want to point out to you that every program above that dollar value that's a type A program has to be audited at least once every 3 years. So you'll see this particular year we audited the child nutrition program, but your most significant programs are audited once every 3 years. Again, very good and positive results there. The last area we have is state compliance, and you'll see that I have a word qualified down there. And what that means is that we actually did find something in regards to state compliance that we're required to report. State compliance is a little bit different in that anything we find, no matter how significant or insignificant, it's required to go into the audit report and be presented here. If you turn past this page, you'll see that we had two very minor items related to attendance that we were required to report in the financial statements. But I would hope that you would agree, as you look at that and read through that, they are very insignificant in total. Just for a point of reference, we visited 20% of your school sites this year to do attendance testing and to interact with the attendance clerks and look at the records and books out at the school sites. So that what we found is very, very minor in comparison to the work that we've done. In addition to that, we did have one item that was not a significant deficiency or material weakness, but is included in here as a recommendation and has to do with vacation accrual and the vacation accrual that's over the district's established maximums or recommendations. And again, we have that in there in terms of just recommending some changes that could be made going forward. That has been included in your report in prior years, and again, we wanted to include that for your consideration this year as well. One other page that I won't make you turn to, but I'll point out, is that there were no audit adjustments made. If we were to have an audit adjustment, we'd want to make you aware of that because it could be an indication of an internal control issue, but we had no audit adjustments. So the information that we're providing our opinion on is the same information that you received previously in the unaudited actuals. All of this put together, the lack of significant findings, the lack of audit adjustments or past audit adjustments, really speaks highly to the credibility of the financial information that you get throughout the year, as well as the work that your team members are doing out at the school sites, at the district office. Your team really should be commended for a job well done in order to achieve the audit results that we have here.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Bobby Singh Allen, do you have any questions or comments?
No, thank you for the report. No questions at this time.
Okay, Dr. Martinez-Leary?
Just appreciate the report, and like you said, I think that goes back to just the commending of the work of our staff and our employees and everybody that's a part of that process.
I agree with Ms. Martinez-Leary. Thank you to our staff that does such a good job and the firm that makes things easy to follow. I've also, when I came on, we were worried about student council accounts, and I'm excited to see that's dropped out of here, and that's become not an issue. So it's exciting to see. We do excellent, and we're even getting better. Thanks.
Ms. Sheriff Espinoza?
Thank you to you for summarizing all of that for us. I appreciate it. And also thank you to our staff for making sure that we maintain such clean records and internal controls. I'm reminded of what we told our Bond Oversight Committee, that no news is good news. I know it can seem uneventful, but I certainly have seen a whole lot of districts across the state who have much more eventful findings, and it's not a good thing. So thank you.
Well, echoing my colleagues, it's always a pleasure to work with you, Matt, and the personnel you bring with us. Sorry I couldn't do this last phone call. We got changed. But the work you do is significant, and what it does for us is to affirm that our people are doing what needs to be done. So thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to mention too as well, our district, the overall hard work of our district that keeps us in compliance. I mean, it's really amazing as large as we are, and the few deficiencies that you find in there. I want to thank Mrs. Hayes and her department, the accounting, the budget. They all work hand in hand, and our field offices, meaning our schools, they do a fantastic job. So I want to pass on to our schools as well, Mr. Superintendent, to let the schools know too their hard work, and superintendents out there, assistant superintendents as well. So Matt, we look forward, a year from now, you're going to leave us a year. I had said on the conference call the other day, and we talked about it a little bit. So you'll be coming back in a year, or you have to leave?
Yeah, so just to comply with the requirements of Ed Code, as the engagement partner, I have to step away for a year. I'm still there to answer questions and to participate, but we have another partner, Jeff Jensen, who will direct the audit, and he'll challenge things a little bit differently. He'll bring a fresh perspective and thought process to the audit. So it's a positive thing in terms of being able to challenge things a little bit differently, but I'll certainly be there to help along the way.
We appreciate it, and Mr. Fortuna and I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, we'll go down to the elections and nomination of officers on our board. Ms. Singh-Allen?
Sure. Madison, thank you. Yes, at this time I would like to nominate Ms. Beth Albiani to be our board president. She's done an excellent job as clerk for the last 2 years. She serves on the CSBA Delegate Assembly and has participated in numerous professional development opportunities, not only through CSBA, but as part of her being a lifelong learner. And I think that she would do an amazing job. And with that, I'd like to nominate Ms. Albiani.
We'll call for a motion by roll call.
I just made the motion.
Second that nomination.
Second that.
You second it?
I second the nomination.
All righty.
Okay. Now the vote by
Now,
roll
yeah,
call?
we'll go for a vote roll call. Mr. Fortuna?
Aye. I'm waiting to be called.
Carmen Fortuna,
Aye.
Nancy Chaitis Espinosa,
Aye.
Deb Madison,
Aye.
Beth Crystal Martinez Leary,
Aye.
and Bobby Singh Allen.
Aye, thank you.
Motion carried.
I hope
All
you
right.
accept.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to call for a nomination for the Board of Education, a clerk.
Mr. Madison, if I may make a motion again?
Okay.
Since no one else
Since
is
you're on
speaking
a
up,
roll.
I'm not shy. I would like to nominate my seatmate here next to me, Dr. Crystal Martinez-Aleri, who also is a tremendous leader. She just recently got elected as a board of director with California School Board Association. She participates on numerous committees and, for professional development. She's a counselor at Cosumnes River College and just a dynamic leader as well. Would like to nominate her for clerk.
Okay, we have a second on that?
Well, I want to second that, but I'd like to amend the nomination to this extent. A year ago, we talked about the benefits and purpose of referencing our clerk position as vice president. Yes. And that understanding that some papers have to be signed that say clerk, but basically the person serves as the vice president. So I would ask that we amend the motion and nominate Crystal Martinez-Aleri as vice president.
Well, I'll second that then.
Okay, it's
I
been
think she
moved.
accepted the amended motion, so we have a first and second.
I accepted that.
Yeah.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Carmen Fortuna.
Aye.
Nancy Chidas Espinosa.
Aye.
Chet Madison.
Aye.
Beth Albiani. Aye. Bobby Sing Allen.
Aye. All right.
Congratulations.
Now the million-dollar question, Mr. Madison, where are you going to sit?
Call for a motion to elect board representative for the Sacramento County of Education. I am.
Would you like to remain?
I'd like to nominate Mr. Madison to continue serving as our representative with SCOE.
Okay.
I'll second. Do you accept?
I accept.
All right. Do we need a roll call on that, or can we do by? Okay.
Carmen Fortuna.
Aye.
Nancy Chidas Espinosa.
Aye.
Beth Albiani. Aye. Crystal Martinez-Aleri. Bobby Sing Allen.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll establish the date and time and place of meetings, and we'll call for a motion to establish the date and times for meetings for the coming year, the first and third Tuesday of each month at 6 p.m. and closed session at 5 p.m. when necessary, with the place of the meeting being determined by the Secretary of the Board of Education. Call for a motion.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. New president taking care of business already. Okay, we want to go ahead, presentation of the gavel to the incoming president.
Oh, look at you, hit it. Stand up.
Okay, and then the presentation of the outgoing.
Do I get to give this to you?
Yes. Thank you. I just want to mention that, say that I think Ms. Albiani is going to be a good president. She's really immersed herself into the district. She took her time, and she's on her second, I guess, second term right now in the board. So for me, that means a lot. When you first term, 4 years, you stay, you look, you see, you learn, you keep going. And I think she's done a good job in that area. And she continues to learn and working with the superintendent and the staff. So I have no doubt that she'll lead our board in the right direction. Thank you.
While you two switch chairs and no one's ready to tell me not to speak, I just want to thank Mr. Madison for your leadership this past year. You know, our district continues to grow and experience growing pains and pains in changing culture. I think it's been invaluable to have you at the helm during that time. So thank you so much for your leadership.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure. District means a lot to me. I've seen all my kids go through and my grandkids, so it's a wonderful place to be and serve. Thank you.
I'd like to also make some comments. I echo everything Ms. Chidas Espinosa stated about Mr. Madison, I would also like to just say that you are our longest-serving school board trustee currently on the dais, and the wealth of experience and knowledge you bring is invaluable. You are our trustee of historical information, and we rely on you for a lot of those facts and just the history, which is very important because we've come a long way and we have a bright future ahead, but we didn't get here without the work that you've done since you've served on the board, and it's been a pleasure having you as our leader, and just thank you and your family for sharing you with us.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
And I'll make a couple of quick remarks. When Chet had nominated me for president of the board, I made a number of comments. And I'd like to add to those now. We all bring different things, certainly, to the board. But Chet, over the last 7 years that I've known you, you brought integrity to every meeting, honesty, and for most of us have really established trust, and your direction has been incredible. Thank you.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
We're good?
We're good. We'll move forward, Madam President.
Thank you. Thank you for all you have done over the years, Chet. I hope to follow worthy in your footsteps.
Thank you.
I'd like to call on Jennifer Avey for our observation of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, please.
Well, congratulations and good evening, Madam President Albiani, members of the board, Superintendent Hoffman, and Ms. Avalos. The Board of Education is asked to adopt resolution number 26, affirming that January 20th, 2020 be a celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. Dr. King is universally recognized as a proponent of nonviolence in the pursuit of freedom and justice in the United States. His dream was of America as a country without prejudice and bigotry, where people would be accepted based on their actions, not on the color of their skin. With support from our Curriculum and Professional Learning Department, adopted curriculum, and our individual site leadership, educators will be able to demonstrate their responsibility and privilege to assist our students in developing their skills to reach their dreams for achievement and to preserve a nation which practices equality for all.
Thank you. I'd like to call for a motion to adopt resolution number 26, which resolves that January 20th, 2020 be affirmed as a celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Ms. Avey. May we have Dr. Bindi Grewal? She will speak on the Day of Remembrance.
Good evening again. Joining me are Mariel Tsukamoto of the Foreign Japanese American Citizens League, Naomi Pretty, Education Director for the California Museum, and Christine Umeda, Chair of the Northern California Time of Remembrance Education Project. I'm here to ask that you reaffirm February 19, 2020 as an annual day of remembrance. This marks the 78th anniversary of an executive order signed by President Roosevelt in 1942, and the order proclaimed California, Oregon, and Washington military zones and led to the forced removal of 120,000 Japanese Americans to incarceration camps for World War II. In 1945, the United States began to close the internment camps. Restructuring their lives after World War II was difficult for many Japanese Americans. Most lost their homes, their farms, their businesses, and their properties. Their education was disrupted, and acts of discrimination and violence were commonplace. Annually, our Elk Grove students, our fifth grade students, visit the California Museum, the longest running exhibit titled Uprooted Japanese Americans During World War II, which surveys a century of Japanese history through the personal stories of formerly interned California. And this exhibit runs from January through March, and the students learn about the Japanese internment and about the rights denied. Would any of you like to say a few words before the board takes action?
I'll just keep it short, but again, for the record, I want to state that Elk Grove Unified School District was one of the first on the West Coast and in the nation, not only to recognize what happened to those of us that were American citizens having lost due process rights. It was a serious abrogation of the Constitution. And since that time, you know, I think there's only one person that can claim their relatives are not immigrants. The American Indians were here first, and all the rest of us came from another place. And we are blessed with the only Constitution that has a Bill of Rights. And I want to congratulate this board for your continuing support of not only, we tell our story because it's about a loss of constitutional rights. It's over for us. But my mother, Mary Tsukamoto, in 1983 recognized it wasn't for us. It's for your grandchildren, it's for the future. And you as a board and as a staff of teachers that fully supports this kind of education is making a tremendous difference. I now see students that came through the program as teachers teaching those same concepts. And you need to understand that your board is the only one that has consistently supported this program since 1983. And look what's happening now. We're finding that some of the same camps that we were in are being used as incarceration centers for children that were separated from their parents. I was 5, but I got to be with my family, and it still scarred me. But this board made us welcome when we came back and recognized my mother, Mary Tsukamoto, with a school named in her honor. When she was a child and my father and my aunts and uncles went to school, they were in a segregated school. So congratulations to you, and I want to give special thanks to Mr. Madison, Mr. Forcina for your long, long service, and for all of you for the hours you spend at meetings. And Bobby, thank you for the comments that you made about Mr. Madison, and to Carmine too. Those were so true. Thank you for your devoted service. We are very grateful.
Hi, Chet.
Somebody care to make a comment?
Yes, please.
Please go ahead, Carmen.
I have to get my mind changed. Chet and I have had opportunities to go to Day of Remembrance ceremonies at the California Museum. And, you know, unfortunately, I couldn't go the last 2 years. This is already on the calendar for this year since I can come back again. That day is a really special day. It's energetic, it's informative, it is well organized, and I would just encourage everyone to try to participate because it is a worthwhile use of your time.
Nancy?
Madam, oh, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you to all the chapters of JACL, everyone involved with Time of Remembrance and the State Museum now, the California State Museum, for being leaders and advocates, and many of you before your time, really. You were leading the charge on ethnic studies before we even knew such a term existed. And somebody asked me recently, well, what is the point of ethnic studies? You know, how is it different than just history? And I think you guys illustrate that connection, that difference really, really well, which is, yes, there is the learning of history, but also the connection to how that applies to what's going on today. And your work, unfortunately, is more important than ever. So I want to thank you so much for what you do for our students.
Anyone else?
I just wanted to thank you again for the work that you do and for being present at all our meetings. Your voice and the community's voice is very important, and what you're doing to help educate future generations is instrumental, so thank you again.
I'll certainly be there in February, get a chance to see it again. It's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. I've always enjoyed it. It resonates to me of what my parents and my grandparents went through a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank all of you, and thank you, Mary Ellen, for all the work that you do. It was great to see you and the group at the California Museum Hall of Fame, where those that attended, we had the pleasure of meeting another survivor, Jean Wakatsuki, who was inducted into the Hall of Fame. There's an incredible book that she wrote called Farewell to Manzanar. And I think a number of us really know the history more from, not necessarily through testimonials outside of what we've learned from the work that you've done at the California Museum and those students that have had the benefit of attending the exhibit. She really captures what it was like. What is it? Because no one asked that question of, how did you feel? It was a report of what occurred, but that human story of what that meant to them as U.S. citizens to be denied rights protected under the Constitution. Challenges, like you said very eloquently, that we face in today's world as well. So unless we learn from history, history will repeat itself. And so thank you for all of the work that you do so that we can always learn and grow and be those lifelong learners and learn from the mistakes so that nobody is denied those rights ever again. Thank you.
Thank you, and I just want to make a comment. Do you know that other school districts don't do this? And it's because the school board doesn't support it.
Well, if you want us to talk to them, just let us know.
It makes a big difference.
I wanted to thank you. I had the opportunity to attend with my children, and it led to discussions that continue to this day that we reference. And on travel, we have gone to some place that was a closed camp, and it is always referenced back. Your downstairs exhibit where you walk through quarters is life-changing. I believe I've seen it for all my children and myself. So thank you for your work. I'd like to call for a motion to adopt resolution number 29, reaffirming the Day of Remembrance resolution.
I gladly recommend adoption of resolution 26.
Thank you. A second?
We'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Resolution passes. We're moving on to requests for student expulsions. I keep waiting for Chet to talk.
Yeah, that'll happen.
All right. Does anyone wish to address the board in closed session regarding a student expulsion? Seeing no one, will move to vote. I'd like to call for a motion to approve the request for student expulsions.
Move.
And second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. I'd like to call for public comment. We can start with Ms. Pryor. And the second will be Kathleen Mers? Where'd you go? Yeah. You'll be up after, Miss. Thank you.
Good evening, all. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you real quickly. I am all for history and I support the Day of Remembrance, but I do have to come up and correct the narrative. My people, Black Americans, are descendants of slavery. We are not immigrants. We were forced to come here and work the land for no pay, and we are the only group who has not received reparations for our work. So we have to be clear when we're teaching students that we don't come up and refer to everyone as immigrants. We're not that. In terms of my 2019 observations, I'm a little disappointed. I'm disappointed because every time there's an issue that comes up, like I know the most recent one at Pleasant Grove with the young Muslim girl, when an issue comes up, we give out a tone-deaf response about what we don't tolerate. But we've been coming before you for the past 2 years, and it seems like there are a lot of behaviors that are tolerated in this district. And so with the new leadership coming in, Madam President, I would like to work with you on a new set of goals. Those goals have to be, we have to start acknowledging when we cause students pain in this district, whether it be our staff, whether it be the administrators in your district office. We have to acknowledge it, and then we have to apologize for it. We have too many students out here who are not receiving apologies when we know that the behavior was wrong. And then we have to take accountability. What that looks like is when we know we do something wrong, we apologize, just like we expect the students on the campus to do. And then we try to make sure that we restore that young person to whole. We want them to be productive students. They cannot be productive students if they do not feel cared for on your campuses. So accountability is a really big one, and we have to stop doubling down on bad behavior. I've watched way too many times this year alone at the doubling down of bad behavior because nobody wants to acknowledge when they've done wrong. And then I've seen this whole process where we're quick to punish students, but we're not as quick to rectify the situation when we know that maybe there wasn't a procedure followed. So what I would like to see is us to stop doubling down on bad behavior. Let's acknowledge what happened, let's apologize for it, and then let's take accountability so that we can move on in the right direction. And I understand that the process takes some time, but it should not take over 6 months because I know that parents have 6 months to file a tort. So I would like to get on it sooner rather than later, as opposed to letting these families go through and feel like this district does not care for them. There are a lot of great things happening in this district. We just want to be included. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, it does. It's Miss Mears, M-E-R-Z?
M-E-R-Z.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So, can I move that? Okay. So, good evening. I'm Kathleen Mears. I'm the principal of the California Montessori Project, Elk Grove campus, and I am excited to share our Montessori Minute. This evening with me is our Director of Program, Mickey Slamkowski. Mickey has been a Montessorian for over 30 years. She's been with CMP for 16 of those, and was principal of the Elk Grove campus from 2004 to 2011. The last time I was here, we were sharing that we were preparing for our annual spelling bee. So I wanted to let you know that on December 12th, we held it, and we had over 35 participants, and the winner was a 6th grade student with the correctly spelled word of marinate. Yesterday, the Elk Grove campus was excited to welcome our new charter liaison, Jane Ross, came and visited. We were able to share our philosophy, our goals, and observe some classrooms. And then later this week on Thursday, from 4 to 6 p.m., we're holding our Watch Me Work night for our students and families from 1st through 8th grades. And I'd like to invite you to join us. And that's it. So thank you and have a beautiful evening.
Thank you very much.
Not quite a minute, sorry.
Ms. Solano?
Thank you, President Albiani. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And board. Tonight I'm here, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, but I'm here to discuss different options for schedules for Elk Grove High School. Right now we're on a 6-period day, and I've heard a lot of information lately that increasing those periods would greatly benefit our students. We all want what's best, and we all want to give them every opportunity we can to succeed. And 6 periods is just not really doing it for everybody, and we need to be inclusive to everybody. We all want what's best for them, and if we could increase the periods from 6, which would give them a 60-credit year at 240 credits for the whole 4 years, to a 7-period day, they would get 70 credits a year and a possibility of 280 credits. That's a lot more opportunities for kids. Or an 8-period day would be 80 credits at 320. Now, those kids that are challenged and have a hard time in class, this would open up so many opportunities for them to have other options to pursue other than after school or summer school or special programs. It would give them the opportunity to follow, in classes. It would also give kids a challenge, that can't make that 240 to graduate. It would give them more opportunities to graduate on time. And this might also take away summer school, which I'm sure is a big expense for the district. So we would have that opportunity to give the kids more. It also, for all these amazing academies that we saw up here today, it would open the door for them to take even more, to be more involved. And I think we owe it to the kids to give them that opportunity. Right now, they do have to attend summer school or zero period. A lot of them are taking PE in summer school, and that's kind of a travesty. Why can't we just give them another period or two in class and give them more opportunities? Students interested in CTE or other elective programs has less opportunity to explore career options or learn work-based skills. Let's get them hooked. Let's get them ready for the future. And that would happen with 7 or 8 periods. Students who take AP as well would have much more opportunities, and there are a lot of schools in the district right now who are giving these opportunities to these kids, and we would really like that to happen at Elk Grove High. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda.
Ms. Albiani?
Yes.
In regards to the previous speaker, would it be helpful to have her connect with one of our, just with Craig Murray, just to go over like what the process for schedules and how that all comes about so that there's not a mystery and we can address it in real time. Thank you.
Thank you.
I call to move consent items 1 through 51. The
I'll
motion.
second.
I'd like to abstain on item 37 as it pertains to me.
Uh-oh.
And I'm also as well on the same number, 37, so I'd like to abstain from that portion.
I am in the same boat, so would we be?
Can I
stagger that? Okay, so we will each abstain from those individual items in 37 that pertain to us.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're voting on items 1 through 51 minus item 37. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I have a concern if I have 1, 2, 3 people sitting out of item 37. I don't have 4 people to vote on item 37.
So that's
Well,
why
we can do it individually of each resolution. So I'm abstaining from mine only.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I think we do the motion that says each of the persons that's on it is off for that vote. So because for each person, but we can do one collective piece and we'll capture it in the minutes that
Yes,
that's
perfect.
taken care of.
All right.
So moved, as Chris explained.
Second, as Chris explained.
You, Mr. Hoffman, I'll get better at this.
Okay. Good
All in
question.
favor?
Okay. Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The consent agenda passed. I'd like to call up Mr. Matthew Espinoza for the progress report on race and educational equity. Took mine. I think that's Jeff's.
All right. Buenas noches. Here we are. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, President Albiani and members of the board, and Mr. Hoffman and Ms. Avalos, although she took off apparently. I don't blame her. It's getting late, and we're going to get on with this piece because we have some important people to celebrate and some work to talk about this evening. I think of this as if you know Hawaiian culture, you'll know the pupu platter is like a sampler to provide access to a wide range of culinary delicacies. And so I think this is appropriate because today, in terms of educational equity, our focus is around opportunity and access. And how are we improving our ability to provide opportunity and access to a range of services, programs, and supports. In particular, today we're talking about the increased participation in our CTE programs to build on some of the celebrations and the recognitions that we had of our CTE pathway programs earlier this evening, as well as talking about the role that social emotional supports play in our students' education through social emotional learning. So that's what I want to start with first. This idea, building on some of the work that we did in our board workshop and in previous presentations, the importance of our social emotional learning, not just in our MTSS or multi-tiered systems of support program, but really as a core element of learning for all. We looked at this range of competencies, self-management competencies, self-awareness competencies, social awareness, relationship building skills, and responsible decision making as critical factors in students being successful in school and in learning and in life. I pose tonight that it is not only students that are engaged in learning and developing all of these skills, but also many adults, including every single person in this room, have areas in this where they might feel more strong in, and others where we're constantly trying to develop those skills. I know for me personally, some of those self-management, those stress management, organizational skills are lifelong lessons for me as an adult. And I think the more we can embrace this work, not just for students, but for adults, the more effective we will be in serving all of our students. When staff members are lacking in some of those competencies, it plays out in the way that we serve our students. So what I'm posing to us, in addition to developing social emotional competencies generally, is that this is also a perfect opportunity to address the growth of an equity mindset for both adults and students alike. All of our social emotional learning competencies are strongly connected to critical consciousness and social justice outcomes that are the kinds of things that we're striving for in order to move our equity work forward. So if we're looking for a vehicle for preventing hate-motivated behaviors, for being open-minded and accepting of all of the diversity of our district, this is a perfect vehicle for that. For example, if you look at self-awareness, a big part of that is developing pride in one's own identity. If we look at social awareness, that is a huge component of building critical social consciousness and understanding of diverse perspectives and being able to relate with diverse perspectives. If we look at self-management, we know that there is stress that is implicated on our students from living in worlds where they might feel daily marginalized, whether it's through racism, through ableism, or other forms of oppression that they're experiencing in their society at large, or even within our school systems. And then the acculturative stress are things that take place when the home life, culture, or language aren't necessarily in alignment with what is expected at school. That requires some skills, some coping skills to make that adjustment. And so we think about responsible decision making. What if we layer on the fact or a lens of equity where we're saying we're trying to help students not just make responsible decisions, but be aware of the possible implications on diverse range of people, and that the implications of the consequences of my decisions might not affect every single person the same, and considering and layering that piece in. And then finally, developing relationships across culturally competent relationships is another layer that we can add into our social emotional learning. And so I present this, and this is actually from the source is Culturally Responsive Minds. as a way for us to start thinking about how do we, if we really want to move this work systematically from kindergarten, our students from kindergarten through 12th grade, as well as with our staff, this work that we're doing in social emotional learning is an important partner in our equity work. I present a couple of ways that this could be applied to adult learning too. So as adults are considering self-awareness, we can layer in the critical consciousness of equity with questions like, in what ways does your identity inform who you are as an educator? And what are the relevant similarities and differences in your lived experiences and those of your students? These are questions that are relating to developing a sense of self-awareness, but also help us move our equity work forward. And another example through the relationship skills are things like, how do you make sure students help and support each other to grow and learn in positive ways? And do you make every effort to get to know your students and their community? And do you invite students to get to know you, right? And so these are reflective questions that as adults we can engage in development around relationship building skills from social emotional lens, but also can help us to develop the competencies to move our equity work forward as well. So again, the source here is Culturally Responsive Minds. This is a program that we have actually been trialing as that does that blend of equity work and social emotional learning work in one program or curriculum. And we've just finished a trial of that seemed to have gone very successfully. So that's to kind of continue the building on the social emotional learning piece. The second, the last piece of this report or presentation is about how we're trying to provide opportunity and access for our students in our career and technical education programs. So for that, there's three lenses or layers that we're going to look at. First, I'll invite Vicki Nelson from our College and Career Connections Department to talk about some of the district-wide work that we're doing. Then I'll invite Dave Hackett, who's here with Brian Brown, and who've been working on a inclusive CTE program at Laguna Creek High School. And then finally, Justin Cecil at Sheldon High School will share his work with Kelly Cosney at Sheldon, in their Biotech Academy that we honored earlier this morning to recruit and provide more access to students of color, English learners, and students from low-income families. So I'll start with handing it over to Vicki Nelson.
Well, good evening. I'd like to address equity and access in career technical education in our district. The state has given us guidance for career and technical education programs with an emphasis on access for special populations. This includes opportunities for students with exceptional needs to participate in all of our programs. Our ultimate goal is to eliminate the achievement gap, and we believe we can do this through increasing access, support, and advancement for special populations in career technical education. The state superintendent encourages districts to be bold, creative, and innovative in our approach in achieving this. And so I'd like to share with you some of the ways in which Elk Grove is doing this in career technical education. Here we go. First of all, we're analyzing CTE data with an equity lens. We're looking at students with disabilities, foster youth, and homeless specifically. We're collaborating with other EGUSD departments such as Transition Services, the CCGI counselor, special ed departments, as well as CTE teachers. We're sponsoring professional development with SPED and CTE teachers. For example, coming from the RSP world at Monterey Trail, I realized that as a case manager, I really needed to learn what were the CTE options at the high school where I was at. And then as I learned more about the pathways, I realized that CTE teachers need to learn more about what it means to serve students with disabilities pertaining to their accommodation plans and accommodating them in their classrooms. And then we also want to offer them some training for how case managers can write individual transition plans so that students can get the access they need into their programs. We want to increase recruitment of underrepresented students in CTE programs. We do this through having CTE shadow days for our special population students. We are hiring an instructional coach, that's me, specifically to support students with disabilities in CTE programs. We're developing programs to support foster youth, collaborating with CRC for transitioning to CTE pathways. And lastly, we are initiating 2 pilot programs for inclusion at Pleasant Grove and Laguna Creek, and that leads me to introduce you to the next 2 to talk about those innovative programs.
Good evening, Board. We're excited to be here. Brian Brown and I have been working on this program for the last 3 years. It was just kind of a brainstorming thing that we did in pre-service, coming up with an idea about serving a really underrepresented group in career technical education. So it was going to be a pilot course. Worked out so well the first year that we have found ways to keep it going, and we hope to actually use it as a model. But this is one of those cases where the district has put together a video of what the program is like, where you can hear from the administrators that helped, and it's absolutely critical to have a principal and vice principal to support you, and a career technical education department that backs you as far as money and helping with scheduling and things like that. But they put together a video, and if you had a chance, there's a 2-minute version and an 8-minute version. You get a much better idea hearing from the administrators and the parents and the kids, not only the kids with special needs, but also we have mentors from our academy that help and are actually a critical part of keeping the program up and running, because there's one of me and there's up to 30 kids with special needs that are in that classroom, and students are doing things like using a table saw, they're using a joiner, things that would be particularly dangerous if we didn't have help from these students who have been trained in using those pieces of equipment. So they're absolutely critical. So if you could watch that video, I think you have a much better idea what's going on in the class. It incorporates hands-on learning, so they're building, we've made wood duck nesting boxes for Consumers River Preserve. We've taken those down there, and the kids learn about the science of migration. They get the experience of interacting with professionals down there and seeing what they've built being used. We make Christmas gifts, and that's one of the reasons why the parents like it, I think. They get a little something out of it every year. We've focused on science the first year and engineering, so they did egg drop devices, and we've built rockets with 3D printers. They're exposed to all the things that we do in the regular career technical education classes. And one of the things I want to emphasize, I had no idea. I'm a science and technology teacher, but when Brian talked to me about that, he said, if you challenge these kids, they'll rise to the occasion. And I have a visually impaired student. He uses the miter saw. He uses the impact driver, no problem. We have a student who's particularly sensitive to sounds. We put hearing protection on her. She's in the shop really doing scary things, but you know, she resisted at the beginning, but now she is enthusiastic when she comes to in that wood shop when we're going to do some kind of project. And that's just the enthusiasm from these kids to do something outside the box, not just learning about it from a book, but doing the hands-on stuff. It's been an inspiration to me, and it's just been a wonderful experience, I think, for the kids. They all talk about liking the class. And again, it's this untapped group of kids who need the hands-on skills. They're going to be employed, right? They're going to leave our school district and get a job. Let's provide opportunities for them to learn the kinds of skills that they could be using in employment.
All right. And then finally, Justin Cecil from Sheldon.
Good evening. Even though part of our CPA funding requirements, 2 big requirements are 50% of our students are at risk, and they have to voluntarily enroll in the program, we meet that, obviously. We started looking at it, and we're like, we kind of realized we could do a better job and we could improve the underrepresented groups in our academy. Not only the second kind of thing, not only do a better job recruiting those underrepresented groups, also once they're there, help retain through kind of different, modify our support system a little bit. So on the recruiting side, one of the first things we did was make sure that when we sent our recruiting team to Smedberg, our feeder elementary or middle school, that it was very representative of all demographics. in all recruiting materials, in the slide presentations, and anything that went out, also any public relations things that we do with our kids, make sure that it represents across the board. And it's made a huge difference in the underrepresented groups. So English language learners, we can talk about all the different ethnicities, females, particularly being in a STEM field, which are typically very underrepresented. We have a majority of we're over, okay, way over 50% on that. And then on the support system, we realized that once they're there, things that we could do better. So one of the first things was to create a freshman senior mentor program. So from the first week they're on Sheldon's campus, they form a relationship with a biotech senior that gives them a support system that's outside of the teachers. Because as we know, parents, teachers can say stuff, but when you hear it from a peer, particularly a peer that looks like you, that has the same goals, aspirations, same experiences, it's so much more valuable. Another component to that was in the past, when we had kids that would struggle academically, typically below 2.5 GPA, we would call it academic probation. We've done away with that. Now it's academic intervention. So we'll bring them in, meet with a CTE teacher, biotech teacher, and then the bigger thing is provide tutoring and opportunities for help from the older biotech kids or biotech kids that are successful in that particular class. Third thing is creating a family atmosphere through social events. Okay. Another big addition was, and it's kind of gravitated out towards the rest of the science department, making sure classrooms are open from 7 o'clock in the morning, they're open at lunch, and they're open after school. So they have a place to come, whether it's for, you're even in our classes, it doesn't matter anymore. So between the recruiting efforts and the support, this little tweaks that we made, there have been marked improvement in those underrepresented groups.
And I want to emphasize that the goal of providing access to CT programs in some districts is interpreted as a sheer number game, right? Or because it's a good indicator of college-going culture or all these other factors. But what we are explaining here is that it's not just a matter of getting access to powerful learning and experiences and teachers, but also if our goal for our students is sense of belonging, what's provided in our academies and our CTE classes is a strong sense of belonging that in some cases they don't see in other parts of their school day because it's a small learning community, which is really, really powerful for success across the board. So I would like to thank and honor all of our presenters and let you know that in our next session in January, we'll be focused on student-centered supports, in particular behavioral supports through PBIS and other forums that we're providing for our students. So thanks for our leaders in equity, and if we can take a quick photo.
I think our board would like to make some comments.
Okay.
Can we do that first?
Sure.
Thank you. Ms. Singh-Allen?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Espinosa. I always look forward to your presentations. Your passion for the work always shows.
Thank you.
Oh, Ms. Singh-Allen?
Yes.
You know, we have a public comment. I'm sorry. We should start with her.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll come back, but you're still amazing.
Thank you.
Sorry, Ms. Pryor. I wrote my list trying to learn here.
So when I hear social emotional learning, that's become like a buzzword in all these districts. That is something that they say they put on the table to make it seem like there are some movements being directed towards equity. What I'm still not hearing, and normally when somebody tells me there's an update, that means they're building upon something that was already happening. What is the update on your discipline practices, and what is your plan for curbing those numbers? Currently in this district, you are disproportionate in your discipline for Black children, specifically Black boys. And month after month, I come up here, and every presentation, I'm not hearing, I see all the pretty colors and everything, that's great. What's the plan to curb the numbers of your discipline? You have one of your smallest groups with comparable numbers to your larger group of students. So what are we doing on our discipline practices? What supports are we putting in place for these teachers so that they're not sending these students out? The students don't feel like they belong because they are not accepted a lot of times. So what are we putting into play for our students to be successful? Equity, giving everybody everything they need to be successful. I saw all the CTE teachers, that's great. What are the numbers in those classes? I didn't see very many CTE teachers that look like me. That affects the belongingness. So we have to stop skirting around the fact that there has been no movement for months on the update of your discipline practices and how you're going to curb those numbers when it comes to what's going on your campuses. I'm very, very disappointed because every time I come up here, I say the same exact thing, and then we come through and we start giving out awards for leaders in equity. I'm not sure what the numbers are. I don't know how we can give an update. There's been no public meeting that I'm aware of or that I was invited to. So what are we doing? I'm confused because I remember the genesis of this report. I remember what it was started for in the first place. What it sounds like is a mixed bag of tricks at this point. So I want to bring it back to the original reason why the report was started in the first place. I need to see the update on your discipline practices and the supports you're putting in place for your teachers to keep those students in the classroom. Period. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Singh Allen, sorry to interrupt.
I can only ask questions for purposes of this presentation per Brown Act, so I will focus it on your presentation because that's what's been presented to us. So going back to what I said earlier, again, thank you for all of your hard work. On page 10, let's see. So I love the broad range of the efforts on what the district is doing. I'm curious to see how the work, what's going to be the results of some of this stuff. You mentioned, Mr. Espinosa, that you're proud of the work that we're doing because it's more meaningful. It's not just a checkbox. That's important to me. You can always say, do you meet some standards? Or are you doing certain things? And it's just a check, because it's just a basic effort. But it sounds like it's going beyond just an effort, that it's going to be more meaningful and more deliberate. So I want to recognize those nuances. Maybe, some may not see that, but I see it because just checking off a box that you're doing something versus you're actually trying to do more than the basic. I think that that's very important, particularly as we reach out to these underrepresented communities. It has to be more than just a checkbox. It has to be true integration and thorough and meaningful efforts to be inclusive. And then I want to recognize the 2 high schools that are participating in this great work. I really loved what you shared from the respective schools. I look forward to coming out and seeing some of this work personally. I think that this is great. Specifically, as you are successful in what you're doing and sharing that with other school sites. For us to be successful, it obviously needs to be integrated district-wide, but learning from the successes of our selected sites. How did you select those sites?
So this was done through a collaboration with our College and Career Connections office to talk about which sites have done extra efforts as it relates to equity. And they, along with us as a district, are trying to highlight these programs to serve, as Mr. Hackett actually mentioned, as models for the rest of the district. And I think one of the things that often happens is that they don't go recorded, on record, noted anywhere, these things that are happening and great, good things oftentimes in parts of our district, and we want it recorded so we can share it out.
Definitely, I think, and that's what we love as a board, to see those extra measures. Just like the CTEs, we were celebrating how one moved from the gold to the platinum standard because it was going above and beyond and really having those additional benchmarks of success and accountability. So just want to thank you for the great presentation, and I look forward to seeing what's working in terms of our efforts, where we need to expand, maybe what's not working. But I think that these are excellent steps, and thank you to the teachers implementing and going above and beyond.
Mr. Masson?
I want to congratulate all the CTE programs and our teachers and their hard work, as we recognize previously the work and the efforts they all put in. It's a lot of hard work that they do. I was involved with it in the past with the CTE programs. The one thing I wanted to ask, I guess Ms. Nelson too, you're in the college and career connection, on recruiting for future teachers, specifically teachers of color, to help our program, as a lot of us are concerned with, to reflect, so some of our kids can look at that program and say, I want to be part of it. Can you elaborate on that at all? And working with human resources, and I don't mean to put you on the spot or anything, but.
I don't know if maybe David might be better suited to discuss. This is, by the way, this is her not even second month, right? Or 2 months. 2 months on the job. So I hate to.
Sorry, not putting you on the spot or anything. But David, maybe you could elaborate on it a little bit.
I think part of our recruitment efforts and our events is that, you know, we invite and reach out to managers across, hiring managers across all disciplines, whether it's CTE, special education. We do have some specific programs targeted in special education because that is our hardest area to fill, and some programs that tend to draw from more diverse populations. CTE is part of our broader efforts, but we can certainly, I think there is opportunity to bring in more industry teachers and experts to work with our students, and then there is a means through the CTC, the California Teaching Commission, to fast track people into credentials. So that is an area that we continue to look at.
Okay, I just think we ought to really put that on the radar as we move forward. Our district is growing. I know our CTE program is working very, very hard at it, but we have such a diverse district of kids. And we need to reflect that as we move forward, so that should be on the radar.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. And I just...
Chuck, can I do a little quick follow-up with what you're saying? And it applies to you. I certainly understand the importance of having the same diversity within CTE as we have student populations, but I guess I have to say, and to me it's important to say it, to me, many of our CTE teachers, they're almost like volunteers, because to become a CTE teacher, you have to want to do it. And the recognition that you are going to work above and beyond your requirements, and certainly above and beyond all general education teachers, in order to provide successful opportunities to kids. It's not just a regular teaching job. So people have to be willing to give more of themselves than they get paid for or recognized for. And I really compliment all CTE teachers for doing that.
And that's a good point, and I think that should be in the criteria through our human resource department. But there are people out there, is all I'm saying, and we can look at.
And I'll add that it is a lens beyond our teachers, that particularly in the CTE world and some of the work that Jane Ross has done with workforce development and partnerships, and with our our new community engagement partnership coordinator, that is a lens that we're looking at beyond the teachers to find mentors in the field that still are diverse and representative.
And that's just not isolated with CTE. It's teachers, period, in our district as well, too. So I'm going to leave that note. I want to also congratulate the two schools here. I was very impressed with your presentation that you gave with the special needs kids. It's something that's overlooked many times, and those kids can be matriculated into the regular schools and the activities that we have to offer, as well as Sheldon High School, when you mentioned about the underrepresented, and Sheldon recruiting. I really like that, particularly kids that have academic issues and interventions, how you can reach out to those children that that can make a difference in their lives going through a CTE program. So I congratulate you on that, Sheldon High School. Other than that, it was a good presentation. Thank you.
Ms. Martinez-O'Leary.
I wanted to also follow my colleagues in the comment that I appreciate the work being done, especially at the 2 school sites that presented and overall in CTE. I think the lens you're using here for the culturally responsive minds, asking those questions more in depth and also open-ended, were very critical and important here because it gets a different type of response, right? And hearing Sheldon High School too, mentioning about the recruitment and the marketing, I think sometimes one of the best voices are our students, right? And our models in the program. They're the ones who are going to help recruit other students and say, hey, did you hear about this program? Do you want to get involved? You know, this is something exciting, something to look forward to. So hopefully we're able to utilize our students and also key mentors in the community or other organizations that can come back and from the same underrepresented or underserved communities to come back and help mentor others. I like that comment where it also mentioned from one of the teachers about shadowing as well, because I think that's instrumental when students are looking forward. And I like the spin on the words academic intervention instead of using probation. I think for me, wearing a counselor hat, it's a spin of showing some type of positive reinforcement. So I really appreciate that. And I commend you all for the good work and look forward to the presentation to come learning about other programs. This is really nice to showcase our CTE program, so thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cheres-Espinosa.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I want to associate myself with all the comments that have been made. As I listened to the presentations, it really struck me how fortunate we are to have these educators that are going above and beyond and all involved with these programs that are really committed to what I'm most proud of in our district, which is continuous improvement. So thank you so much for being so dialed in on changing the lives of our students.
Mr. Fortuna.
Yeah, first with Brian and Dave, you know, it was great having an opportunity to see students with special needs in the general program. You can certainly pick them out. You know who the kids are, but what's great to see is that they're not kept from participation in all aspects of programs, so that's really important. But I do have a question of the two of you and perhaps Craig also. The video is a tremendous video, and I think that not only should all board members see it, I think everyone within program should see it. So I have two questions. Number one, it was my impression that the video is going to be put on a board agenda as a presentation. Am I correct or not correct?
It's not scheduled.
It's not, no, there wasn't a date, but my impression was that at a point in time, it was going to come for full presentation.
So John Pellman is the one who organized that. He's in CTE, and I think he will, I'll talk to him about it. He's gone right now, but I'll talk to him, make sure that you guys all get an email with it in it, so you guys.
It's an incredible video. I mean, it's really wonderful. And the other piece of that is that really I do think it has value in terms of sharing throughout the entire CT program, but really the entire school district. Justin and Kelly, what can I say about biotech? It was certainly the focus tonight in terms of you going platinum. Sheldon Biotech has provided so many wonderful opportunities to kids in terms of learning about opportunities in their future, in all of the different ways that they can participate, and for the internships and the community partners. You guys have done a great job, and it was great that you got recognition tonight.
Thank you. My fellow board members made comments that I wholly agree with. I want to highlight, I think the interesting idea of just having your classroom open for a child is a great idea, and I know it's a sacrifice on teachers, but as the parent of a child that sometimes has a hard place to go, it's an opening door that makes them belong. So I appreciate that. And if we can make sure and forward the link to the board, Mr. Hoffman, that would be appreciated. I commend both your programs and all the work you do. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Matt. Oh, can we take a photo?
Oh, yes. Crystal hasn't been down today. Thank you. Are there any bargaining units that wish to address the board? We'll move on to action items. Resolution to initiate a transition to a by-trustee area election system commencing with the 2022 governing board election. Mr. Pierce?
Good evening, President Albiani, and congratulations, by the way. Board members, Superintendent Hoffman and Ms. Avalos, it's my pleasure and honor to introduce this item to you tonight. We do have a guest, Mr. Michael Smith with Lozano Smith Attorneys. Will give a presentation to you with regards to the California Voting Rights Act. I do want to just point out for the board has had deliberate conversations about this dating back to 2010 when the last census occurred. I appreciate the board's work on this moving forward, and this will be the fourth time since that census occurred that the board has had these conversations and deliberations. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Smith, who will give you a short presentation, and we'll move forward from there. Thank you.
Well, good evening. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight. So we're going to chat for a few minutes about the California Voting Rights Act, and then you have before you tonight a resolution that would actually set in motion the movement about how you change and your own election process. So the California Voting Rights Act was first enacted in 2003 and then kind of swept through the state when the 2010 census came out. And in essence, this law has transformed
Excuse me, can you get a little closer to the
agencies-
mic so we get you recorded, please?
Is that
Thank
better?
you. Yeah.
Yeah, that is better. I can hear it. Okay, my apologies. So the California Voting Rights Act was enacted in 2003. And then with the census data, when that was released in 2010, it began having a very, very significant impact on public agencies across the state. So this particular law is set forth in the Elections Code, and it affects lots of local public agencies, cities, counties, special districts, including school districts. So the key concept here is that the role of the law is to try to reduce racially polarized voting. And what the statute says is that racially polarized voting exists if we have negatively impacted protected classes with respect to their ability to either influence the outcome of measures or candidates. So the underlying thesis here is that if you move from an at-large election system to a district-based election system, you're in what the law calls a safe harbor. So the assumption is with at-large voting, you may be, in fact, engaged in racially polarized voting. The driver behind the law is honestly attorney's fees, because what's happened is a lot of public agencies have been given demand letters or received lawsuits, and they've paid tremendous amounts of money ultimately settling. To date, there's been no successful defense by any local public agency, be it city, county, or school district, when faced with a request from a plaintiff's community to try to, when the plaintiff is trying to force you to move from an at-large to a by-trustee area. So, and by the way, there was a request for the specific statutes here, and the California Voting Rights Act is enacted in the Elections Code at section 14025 and following. So there are three types of voting systems that are available to school districts. So the chart that's up on the screen is what we would call a pure at-large election system. So if you look at the red dots and consider those, for example, the 7 trustees of a district, and then the blue dots would represent the registered voters. You can see in this graphic, for example, trustees 6 and 7 live very close to one another. And there's no need to population balance because all the voters in the district get to vote for all of the trustees. That's a pure at-large method of election. The Elk Grove model is a hybrid. So your model, you have 7 trustees, but you are in trustee areas. So each of you must reside within your defined trustee areas, but you are elected by all of the voters in the district. So this is still considered a form of at-large voting. That makes you legally vulnerable to a potential demand and to a potentially paying out $30,000 in attorney's fees. So the goal of tonight's action is to be proactive, to adopt the resolution, and hopefully then avoid the payment of that $30,000 attorney fee possibility by moving to a system that would look like this, where you have each of the 7 areas, and you'll notice that there are the same number of registered voters in each of the trustee areas. So there are 4 dots representing an equal number of population per trustee area. And the intent of that is to have the one person, one vote rule in place so that everybody's vote has the same value. So what happened here is that you became a unified district back in 1959, and a number of smaller districts were merged. As was the case with almost every district back then that became unified, what happened was the goal was representation of the merged districts. In other words, no one was looking at representation at the board level with the perspective of trying to ensure that we had minority board members sitting on the board. It was all about representation of that prior merged district. So most of those districts had 5 trustees. When you were created as a unified district, it became a 7-person board, but again, the goal was representation of each of the merged districts. In 2011, this board changed the way that you went about things significantly because you population balanced each of your trustee areas. So the lines were redrawn, a demographer came in, and that was a pretty significant change, and that new map was approved in November of 2011. So the next thing that will happen, of course, is you have an election in 2020 with 3 trustees up, and then in 2022 with 4 trustees. So focusing on the resolution, what will you be doing tonight? Assuming the board votes in favor of the resolution, you would be stating your intent to move with all deliberate speed using the 2020 census data and implementing a change, moving from an at-large system to a district-based election system, commencing with the 2022 election, and then you would complete that cycle with the 2024 election. So what's the process? Assuming the board adopts the resolution tonight, that sets in motion a timeline, and I'll walk you through in a second what that timeline would look like. But essentially what happened a few years ago, school districts were paying literally hundreds of thousands of dollars, some millions, to defend their existing voting system. The law changed a few years ago to require more public hearings and more transparency, but in exchange for that, the attorney's fees demands are now limited to that $30,000 figure that I mentioned earlier. So what will happen is, in addition to tonight's board meeting, the process would involve a minimum of 5 public hearing board meetings. So in that first public hearing, you would be getting, the demographer would be here, council will be present, you'll be walked through the Voting Rights Act, and that's probably the presentation that would involve a pretty detailed description of what came out of the 2020 census data. During the second board meeting, again, before you've even looked at a map, you're going to be looking at that data, you're going to be talking about where the lines can be moved, and you will probably adopt at your second board meeting what's called line drawing criteria. For example, your trustee areas will be geographically compact. You may want to look at dividing trustee areas to ensure you have multiple different schools within each of those trustee areas so that you don't have that kind of balkanization process that can sometimes result from implementation of trustee areas. So the second board meeting is likely to focus on the line drawing criteria. In the meantime, the demographer has taken the data and will probably come at your third board meeting and give you multiple maps for you to look at. And that's the time in which the board can have a lot of input about what happens if we move this boundary. Community input. There'll be probably things going out in Spanish and other language where you'll be seeking community involvement and community input, in particular on the maps. So you'll have a couple of board meetings in which you're focusing with the demographer here, be maps up on the screen, and each one of those different maps will have to have each trustee area be population balanced, but there'll be slight variations, and that of course will impact each of you in different ways. And then you'll ultimately, at your final hearing, you'll publish and post notices and say this is the proposed map, and you'll have a final hearing in which you adopt the map. So ultimately, what you're going to wind up doing is voting to change how you elect trustees and then adopting a new map using the 2020 census data. So what's the process here? Once you've gotten through all that process, school districts, unlike cities, counties, and other municipalities, you have to go through getting oversight from the County Board of Education, which sits as the county committee, and you also will want to have the state board's involvement. So for example, cities and other municipalities, they go through that process. A city might, example, adopt an ordinance and they're finished. However, a school district, we have to go to the county committee, and the county committee has to hold at least one public hearing and vote up or down on your proposed map. Assuming the county committee says yes to you, we would then be scheduling a meeting in front of the State Board of Education to try to waive the voter requirement to obtain voter approval. Because if this had to go to a vote, you're going to be incurring a very significant cost to conduct that election. So almost unanimously, school districts go to the state board using the waiver process that's unique to the education code, and then they waive that voter requirement. And these particular education code sections that are applying here are 5019, 5020, and 5030. Those are the key code sections that kind of drive this unique process that affects school districts differently than other local public agencies. So what would the timeline look like? The 2020 census data has to be released prior to April 1st of 2021. So in effect, what would happen is if you adopt the resolution tonight, you'll go into a waiting period. You'll have your 2020 election, which would be in accordance with your normal procedures. The data would be released from the 2020 census in about March. And then we've got essentially March through the rest of the year to do all of those public hearings, to hire the demographer, to look at various maps, to do your community outreach, go to the county committee, obtain state board waiver, and complete the process. Then in November of 2022, you would have your first phase using your new map, and then in 2024, it would be fully implemented. So a couple of final consideration is none of this can change each of you are elected for 4-year terms. And you will continue to have, you know, staggered 4 and 3 so that not all the board members are elected in one cycle. And so you'll all be able to serve out your terms. And probably the key bullet is the last, and that is once you move to this process where you have the district-based maps, every 10 years when that census data comes out, you have to go through a process where you look at it again to try to ensure that population balance. So there's going to be a cost here with hiring a demographer and moving this process forward, and then every 10 years you'll have that demographic update that you'll be doing. So let me stop there and see if there are any particular questions.
Thank you. Mr. Forsino? Ms. Chair, is this Espinoza?
Really, for the record, could you let us know if the CVRA requires any kind of test or verification that racially polarized voting is actually occurring before it forces a change of electoral systems?
Great question. So if you actually found yourself in trial on the question of whether you had racially polarized voting, it's going to be a battle of the experts. And they're going to look at prior election cycles, in particular where there have been candidates of color. They're then going to look at your voters and to say, were your minority voters able to have the candidate of their choice elected? It gets incredibly complex because it could be ballot measures that could go back for 10 years or so. So what winds up happening is you wind up with a very sophisticated trial. The city of Santa Monica, for example, is attempting to say that its ordinance and its election system does not result in racially polarized voting. And the city has spent $22 million so far, and they just finished the trial court. They're now on to the Court of Appeal. Think of that number, $22 million. So what winds up happening is the tail winds up wagging the dog. Instead of spending that kind of money to try to prove, you all have had a history of electing minority candidates to your board, right? You've had incredibly diverse representation for many, many, many years. The problem is that the law assumes that because you have an at-large voting system, the burden is going to be on you to show you don't. And proving that is so costly that school districts wind up saying, we don't want the litigation, we can't afford the cost, so they make the change, even though, for example, this district might be a candidate for trying to say that we already get this message and we're not going to be engaged in racially polarized voting. It's just too costly to win.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Martinez-O'Leary?
Just a quick question, because I know you had mentioned after the census, every 10 years, the demographer would come back out, right? My understanding.
Yes.
So is there also that cost that's accrued each time? I just wanted you to go over that.
Yes, exactly right.
Mr. Mattson? Ms. Singal?
I think given the importance of this topic, and it's pretty monumental, I'm going to make a lot of comments because it's my first opportunity to share them with the public. And I understand why we have to do this. Per legal requirements, I think obviously that's what we have to do. A lot of the arguments that we've seen is what's good for a candidate. And I understand that. The candidate side of me in the future thinks this is easier, and I welcome it. But it's not always what's good for a candidate, what's good for kids, what's good for families. So that's the part that I've always struggled with, because I didn't seek this out, and I don't think any one of my colleagues for this to be a political stepping stone. We're here to represent the interests of not only all children, but those that are underrepresented. Those cross boundaries. So I hope and pray that I know our board, for the most part, will always do what's best for all kids, that we don't become advocates for my area, my kid, my children, my kids. This is still a unified district, and I hope and I know that this board, but this is the message for future boards. For us to succeed, it must be a unified voice for all children. It has to be our children, not just mine. Because that, we talk about, when we do a bargaining with our unions, there's two different models, interest-based bargaining and positional bargaining. What I don't want us to do is be positional advocates being collaborative, being deliberate, being together, interest-based being, in this case, our interests are all children. That's very important for me, and as long as I serve on this board, until the voters say otherwise, that's what I will always champion, is to be a voice for the underrepresented, regardless of where they live. I can tell you, on a given week, I get calls from parents throughout the district on a wide variety of issues, whether it's bullying or just culturally related issues, because as a Sikh woman, as an Indian American, I get a lot of families who feel a comfort in coming to me. School side issues, could be policy related issues, hate crimes, what have you, just a wide variety of issues. A week does not go by that I don't speak to a concerned parent who may not always live in my district. I want those families to know that I can fairly certainly say that this board will continue to be responsive regardless of what the boundaries look like in 2022. That's really important, because I don't want families to think that they only have their trustee as their advocate. That's going to hurt our families, that's going to hurt our children. We've had wonderful examples this year of where that unified voice was instrumental for all children, particularly those that needed it most. The Franklin Elementary School site. They came here and they lobbied the entire board. I know that there are needs in every one of these trustee areas. First thing that comes to mind is Ms. Albiani's school, Pleasant Grove Elementary. Those needs are just as strong as mine. But we were able to come together in support of the school site. I want those families to know that we're still here, regardless of boundaries. Another testimonial, what comes to mind are the students of Florin High School. They brought an important transportation issue. They could have gone to their trustee, but they came to our board for action. Now, if you only have one person advocating for you, the loudest person wins. Those that say the most politically astute with the greatest connections can outmaneuver. This shouldn't be about that. It needs to be about equity. We've talked about equity so many times tonight. We need to always remember those families. You know, and those are the two examples that just sort of shine right in front of me that we just sort of went through very recently.
Your points are incredibly well taken, and if there's any sort of negative unintended consequence of the law, I think that you just articulated it. That ability to kind of begin to focus on my district, and I only have to represent these particular students instead of it's all our kids.
Right.
So your point about making sure that culture
our
remains
kids.
the same, critically important.
And I do, in my heart, I know that this board will honor that spirit. But it's those future boards that I'm concerned about. And that's why I have always been hesitant about a change. Mm-hmm. Because I feel that the families and the students miss out. But I also appreciate how we've gotten here tonight. We didn't have any political theater. This was about being compliant with the law and doing a very thoughtful and deliberate process to get us where we need to be. We are a growing district. We have, 40, 50 schools out in the far horizon. Realistically, we would need to make a change at some point from our current model. So taking the census data into account, our boundary changes, the growing populations with new construction, and where the families ultimately reside, I think those are all very important set of facts that we will consider as we go through this process. So I never like to rush to a conclusion, and I like that we've laid out a great platform, a great process for all stakeholders to engage, so that that family can that's in Franklin knows that there are still other people here listening, that they're not going to feel that they just have one voice, one person advocating, because perhaps the next trustee may not be their strongest asset or advocate. So they need to be reassured along the way, and they'll have some ideas of what those boundaries need to look like. So I appreciate how we've gotten here, and I appreciate Lozano Smith's legal expertise to get us through this process. I value all of the work that you've done, but I wanted to make sure that I shared my concerns, but I also fully recognize that we do need to make the change. So thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just say?
Of course.
Add one thing to it. Being a senior board member here, and just carry on, Ms. Bobby Singh Allen said, I've had the pleasure of being around in this district over 40 years and 20 years towards being a board member. And the current model served us very, very well in our growth and our adversities and the hurdles we had to go over. I understand the law, and I support that part of it, but my fear is, too, is becoming in silos with board members, future board members. So just to go on record, too, that we want to make sure that we're going to do the right thing. Currently, we're fine looking at it, but so many of our surrounding districts, take a look at them and see what's going on. It's a real concern. So I just want to put that out as one of the senior board members here. And I've seen a tremendous amount of growth. I've seen adversity. I've seen just about everything that you can imagine. But at the end, we all came together as a community, as educators, and staff, board members. We were there.
Yeah, this is the old adage, if it isn't broken, why are you fixing it? You know, and it's because we're really being legally compelled, but your model isn't broken. I mean, and that's the sad part of what this discussion's involving.
Yes. Thank you.
Say that again?
Legally compelled without being paid to do it.
That's
no
exactly
financial
right.
assistance. Just more money that we take away from kids.
That's exactly right.
Ms. Charis Espinoza.
Thank you. So I think we've found our way into discussion. I want to, I guess, echo some of the comments I've heard here. I understand and agree with the intention of the California Voting Rights Act. I actually grew up not in this area, but in a city with an at-large, pure at-large voting system, and every member of the entire council for decades had lived in the one high-rent area of the district, literally up on a hill overlooking the rest of the city. Could not have been more perfect. And you know, year after year, election cycle after election cycle, nobody could seem to break that pattern. And after that city moved to a by-district electoral system, not only was there obviously instantly better geographic representation, but it actually did produce ethnic representation, which had not existed there before. So I understand and appreciate that, but unfortunately, I think this law is a textbook example of one size does not fit all. You know, statewide or over the long term, this law has not shown an increase in ethnic minority representation. So why do it? You know, if we're being honest, you know, people who advocate for this, it's really because it's easier for folks to run for office.
Yes.
And as someone who has run for office and would like to do so again, I find that fantastic. You know, I would love to spend less time asking people for money and more time talking to voters and dialoguing with the students and the families that we serve and our employees. You know, more of what I love to do and less of what I really don't like to do. So I think this is a fine, by-district is a fine electoral system, but what about governing? You know, what about governing and what about the actual service to our students and families? Some others alluded to, you know, an example of a local district that hasn't been able to respond to declining enrollment that it suffered for decades because of this electoral system. You couldn't close a school in one area because what about somebody else? And if you're only accountable to a very small percentage of the district voters, they weren't able to adapt. There's another district also in our area that has failed not once but twice to get local school bonds on the ballot for the very same issue because, well, I want the money spent here, not over there, as if, you know, we didn't share responsibility over all of the students in our district. And even more recently, right before Thanksgiving, there was a school district in the Bay Area 1 year after they shifted to this electoral system that initially refused to allocate $33 million in emergency funding at an elementary school where there was extensive rot, mold, and part of the roof had caved in on a teacher who happened to be 8 months pregnant. They refused to act. Why? Because they didn't want the money to go to that school. They wanted to go to a school in a different trustee area. They finally acted after the Thanksgiving break when the roofs of 2 more classrooms caved in after the storms. So I guess I want to put all of this on the record to say I have no problem. In fact, I welcome the changes to the electoral system. I do have concerns about the effect downstream on governance. And I say all of this because I want this board and the public to be vigilant that this board does not become narrow-minded, and that especially after board members begin to turn over, that we retain the ability to act in the interests of all students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. I just want to echo those comments of my colleagues as well. I think it's important to make sure that whatever future brings right to this board, that they are mindful for all students, and it doesn't pit trustee area or our school. This school for this area means more, or we need to focus more on that. You know, I do have the same concerns as my colleagues have mentioned as well. And for me, I always say it's a learning experience, right? I like to pride myself in that we come from a unique representation of board members that I sit alongside, along my colleagues here. And I don't know what that looks like for the future if we have a type of change like this and turn over a different board representation. Will we have that still unique, diverse makeup? Or will it be different, and what capacity? So I just want to make sure that we always have that representation, and that it's not serving another group and then disserving, you know, the haves and the have-nots. And I hope that's not the cause, you know, because we're here, I believe, my colleagues, to serve all students. And so if we can create that message as we continue on, I think, you know, something to resonate and to think about in depth. So thank you.
Mr. Forshina, you good? Okay. I agree with what I have heard and just wanted to highlight our fiduciary responsibility to not enter a lawsuit. It is a huge, and our board is currently diverse. And I think as we move on and become past trustees in public, just as Ms. Cheris Espinoza said, we need to hold the new board accountable for all students, because that's why we all came onto this board, and that is what we expect in the future. And so while we are forced to make this change, we will expect the board to continue with its current attitude towards all students succeeding. So thank you very much for your presentation.
You're most welcome.
I'd like to call on Mr. Pierce for a resolution to support Proposition 13, the public preschool K-12.
Got to take action
Oh.
now. We got a motion on that.
Oh, yeah.
I would like to call for a motion to adopt resolution number 32, initiating a transition to a by-trustee area election system. It's been moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Pierce?
Thank you again, President Albiani, members of the board, Superintendent Hoppin, Ms. Avalos. I will be brief, but the resolution in front of you tonight is in support of Proposition 13. I just want to share some talking points with the board that over the last 3+ decades, the state school facilities bonds have ensured that California school districts have been able to meet the ever-changing needs of education, to build new schools associated with growth, to modernize schools, and even address health and safety concerns. As this board well knows, the state has exhausted all of its existing bonding authority, and there's over $1 billion in current backlog. We're buried in that $1 billion with projects that we have that are eligible for funding, making another statewide bond incredibly important for our district and districts up and down the state. I do want to share that we are fortunate that in this climate, in the first time in 8 years, we actually have a governor who is in support of statewide school bonds. His support of this bond was felt throughout the Capitol. He understands that neither Proposition 98 or the local control funding formula can either afford, nor should they be used to meet the needs of facilities throughout the district. But with that support, AB 48, which is the legislative vehicle that led to Proposition 13, flew through its legislative life cycle. In fact, it had 250 yes votes, and I hate round numbers because they don't feel real. It was 258 yes votes to only 8 no votes throughout AB 48's life. So we thank the governor, we thank the legislative for this support. I will say that through the process, the bill was starting to look as though, and I know Ms. Chaitis Espinoza knows this as well as I do, there was some proposed significant modifications that we would have had an adverse reaction to. Through our work, through the work of other practitioners, other organizations such as Coalition for Adequate School Housing, we were able to enact change on those proposed modifications, some of which came out more so to our benefit than where we were previously with the state school facility program. There's a couple areas that we wish didn't change, but we'll take the positives with some of the negatives. So as you know, we have over $1.7 billion of capital needs. Measure M is less than a third of that. Statewide school bonds are going to be critical so that we can continue to meet the needs in our district. So this proposition will not raise statewide taxes, and it will reduce the need for additional local property taxes in its absence through general obligation bonds. So I ask the board to join countless other school districts and practitioners in approving the resolution that's before you tonight in support of the Public Preschool, K-12, and College Health and Safety Bond Act of 2020. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions? Mr. Forcino? Microphone.
You know, I haven't seen nor I've read the proposed proposition, and I will vote on it. But I have a question with respect to that, and actually maybe two, in terms of how it's going to be approached. If I'm a voter saying I'm going to agree to, you know, additional indebtedness for the state, why should I do that when the money that I already voted for hasn't been spent?
You're talking about Proposition 51 dollars that are still unspent?
Yeah.
That is actually work that we need to continue as practitioners to get the state, and in particular the State Allocation Board, to release those dollars sooner. The money is spoken for. The state, in the previous political climate, has not been comfortable releasing those bonds in the same fashion that they were previously. But those dollars are spent. We just got reimbursed for Dillard Elementary School this week, so think of the oddities there. Without those bonds, boards such as yourself would not be at liberty to even leverage to front fund those projects. With the promise of knowing they'll be funded based on voter approved bonds, you're able to go out and extend yourself and at least front fund those projects so that those schools can be built. Schools like Zender Ranch, schools like Robert McGarvey, we're coming to you with Laguna East soon. We wouldn't be in a position, I would not be in a position to recommend to you to proceed with those projects.
Yeah, well, it's nice to know that.
To that response?
Yeah.
So, I agree with everything that Rob said, of course. I would add that the planning time frame is really, really long, and the process to get applications through these multiple state agencies is really, really long. So that's why we need to know, for example, that there will be more bond funds, that we even should bother going through and telling our community, hey, would you support a local bond because there's going to be more statewide bond money down the road, things of that nature. So just to even continue with our planning, we need that to happen. And the other thing is that Rob alluded to that the current governor is actually selling twice as much in bond funds as the previous governor did. So we are where we are really because it was slow at the start, but it's going to start moving a lot faster.
Now, a second question. You know, it has been spoken to before that, in my opinion, one of the excuses was, well, we don't have the personnel. Are they moving forward on adding additional personnel?
They are starting. In fact, the budget had dollars associated with it to fund the Office of Public School Construction. The LAO has been loud and proud and clear on this as well, that they can also use those bond dollars to fund support staff in the Office of Public School Construction. So that happened as a result of the budget. I anticipate that that's only going to continue moving forward with the governor.
Okay, and you mentioned Dillard. What about our other two schools?
They are in line, so as well as Franklin Elementary. So we don't have the timeline perfectly down yet, but we expect to get funded for Zender Ranch and McGarvey within the next 2 years. But that's all going to depend on the rate at which they're selling bonds. But again, the money is legally committed to coming to us. So we're comfortable in that regard.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, thank you. Great questions.
Anyone else?
Nope.
Thank you. I'd like to move for a motion to ask for a motion to adopt resolution number 33 to support the Public Preschool K through 12 and College Health and Safety Bond Act of 2020.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Ms. Hayes? I'd like to move to the approval of the 2019-20 first interim financial report.
Good evening, Madam President Albiani, members of the board, Superintendent Hoffman, and Ms. Avalos. I bring to you today the first interim financial status, which is a snapshot as of October 31st and where we are projecting our budget going forward. So as part of our process that we bring you, we want to remind you about the annual budget development cycle. We looked at the 19-20 student enrollment. We had changes to our fund balance, components of our multi-year projections, and then our next steps. So where we are in our fiscal cycle right now is we are gearing up for our first interim, which is due to our County Office of Education by December 15th. And then we have coming up our second interim, which is March 15th. And then we're looking forward to the 2021 state budget. And then the governors may revise in May. And then we adopt our budget in June. In looking at our CBEDS enrollment from last year's CBEDS to this year's CBEDS, we have increased, and we typically do increase year over year. That increase is 487 students. In looking at our CBEDS enrollment compared to what we projected we would be, we're actually up 154 students, and that's mostly in our secondary schools. Changes that we made to the budget since the last time you saw it, we budgeted carryover balances and our changes to CBEDS using our site staffing formulas. And then when we started the process, we were deficit spending at $6.63 million, and that was through May revise. We have adjustments totaling $7.26 million, so those are increases in expenditures, bringing our deficit spending up to $13.89 million. Then looking at our budget over time, we adopted with a deficit of $12.6 million. Those are due to the one-time funding priorities. Coming forward through May revise, we had additional revenue for preschool students on IEP. And then we had an adjustment in our PERS rates. And then coming forward to first interim, previously you took action to increase the budgets to continue some funding priorities and some other expenditures that we had started in the prior year, which has brought our deficit spending to $13.8 million, of which is one time. Then looking at components of our multi-year projection, we are estimating a COLA of $17.3 million and $17.4 million, of which we think is inflated. The Special Education Early Intervention Preschool Grant, that is the monies, it's about $5 million that the governor put in the budget that we thought was going to be ongoing that turned out to be one time. So we're anxiously awaiting to see what the governor does with that going forward. And then we adjusted our budget for our student enrollment based on 1920 CBEDS. Looking at expenditures, we continued the staffing levels from 1920. We have an additional $4 million to help with their special education growth in students. We do know that that is probably understated, and we continue to watch our increase in our preschool kids. Looking at our healthcare rates, those are reflected by the recommendations from our JHCC. And then our estimated costs with health benefits under ACA, we continue to monitor that to see what the trends look like. So we are seeing an uptick in hourly staff that are qualifying for healthcare benefits that are working on an hourly basis and not contracted by the district on a daily basis. And then our increases in both CalSTRS and CalPERS, we did take into account the adjustments that the governor has proposed, and they're built into our multi-year projection. And this is the last multi-year projection that we shared with you. You can see that the estimated special ed funding is one time in 1920, and it does not continue. At this point in time, we were estimating a COLA of 3% and 2.8%. I don't usually see normal statutory COLAs to that tune. I continue to believe that that's a ceiling, that's not a norm. And then looking at our contributions and transfers, you can see the change from 114 million to 118, that's for special education. Deficit spending again by 6.6 million, and then you can see our reserves. Now that we're into first interim, this is our new multi-year projection. Deficit spending by 13.9 million. I want to point out that 3% COLA in 2021 is now overstated according to the LAO's office. They are now estimating that our cost of living adjustment will be 1.79%. And 6 of the 8 factors that they use to calculate that COLA are already out there and known, so they don't think that that amount will go back up. Now, the governor has options. They can inflate the COLA. Right now, based on statutory requirements, we do not get anything more in our LCFF calculation other than COLA now that it's fully funded, but they can increase the COLA and go beyond what the statutory COLA is. So in this particular fiscal year 1920, we have a COLA in there of 3.26, which was above and beyond the statutory COLA. So they already inflated it for us to get more money. Prop 98 is trending higher. So we know that the revenue's out there. We just don't know in what format it's going to look like coming in. So deficit spending 13.8 million in 1920. Again, as I mentioned, those are one-time expenditures mostly, which is causing the deficit spending. So you can see in 2021 and 2022, we have surpluses. Keep in mind, if we're at 1.79%, our COLA is going to be roughly cut in half. So that 17 million won't be there. If the governor decides that they're going to do a super COLA, it's just going to put us back where we were projecting. So we're really anxious to see what's going to happen in his January proposal. So it's a lot of unknowns for us. And then next steps, we have the governor's proposal that we'll be going to the school services workshop on January 16th. And then interim, for second interim, will be brought to you in March, and then our May revise, and then our adopted budget. And with that, I'll take any questions and then ask for approval of our first interim financial report.
Start with Ms. Singham. No questions. Thank you for your presentation. Mr. Madsen.
No questions. Good presentation.
Thank you. Ms. Martinez-O'Leary.
Thank you for the presentation.
No questions. Thank you.
Mr. Forcina. Oh, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I would like to call for a motion to approve the 2019-2020 first interim financial report.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We need to appoint a representative from our district to the California School Boards Association Delegate Assembly. I understand Ms. Singh Allen is still interested. Was there anyone else interested? Thank you. She does an excellent job, and we appreciate your work. I would like to call for a nomination.
I would like to nominate Bobby Singh Allen to continue in the position as CSBA Delegate Assembly Representative for our district.
Second. Oh.
Okay, we got everybody. They want you to have
second. You're not,
Do
that's
you
not allowed.
do you accept your nomination? Yes. Then I need a motion to appoint Bobby Singh Allen as our member to the board of the CSBA Delegate Assembly.
So I moved, and I think Crystal seconded.
First and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Bobby.
Thank you.
Last item. Oh, no. Second to last. Board member and superintendent reports. Start with Mr. Forcina. Ms. Chair Espinoza.
PI met And I had my notes handy, and now I don't have them, so I'm hoping Bobby can tell us what we talked about.
Excellent. Ms. Martinez-O'Leary?
I don't know if this would fall under other items from the floor, but.
I'm sorry.
The CSBA conference. Yeah.
Mr. Mattson?
Yeah, I have what the committee wanted to report. Excuse me. Mr. Hoffman and I finally got to attend the
Yes, we did.
City Council of Sacramento. We had a good meeting out there. Councilmember Rick Jennings and Larry Carr. The mayor was unable, I think he was traveling. But I think we set the groundwork that on future meetings we'll have this coming year in 2020. And I thought there was quite a few staff members there from the council, and I thought it was very productive. I don't know if, Chris, you want to add anything to it?
I think the establishing the relationship was a really good first step, and it seemed to be genuine. And we've already actually had some staff contact since
Good.
that meeting. So, good meeting.
Very good.
Yes, 3 reports. Delegate Assembly is a committee, so that is part of our, so we did have that just prior to the conference. And PI met, more Arbinger discussions. Offhand, I'm sure there was one other item, but it's slipping my mind. But a lot of it is just Arbinger integration and the trainer of trainers and all of that good work. And then also CCSD 2x2. A lot of that was related to the MOUs between the two on different use issues. I'm sure they're missing something that Chris or Nancy can add in, but in regards to Delegate Assembly, 2 items that are worth mentioning that were discussed. One is the postponement of the full and fair funding until 2022.
At least.
At least. Per CSBA, bottom line, there's just not enough money to to have a successful effort, and there's also a competing bond as well. And then there is going to be a task force as it relates to climate change. That took up a lot of time. Whether or not this ad hoc committee should even have such a discussion. So it was very vigorous, but this task force will discuss whether or not there will be policies related to it. So we'll see how the vetting of those discussions go, and elections. Maybe Crystal or Beth can chime in on other items. I think that's it for now.
Thank you.
Can I ask Bobby a question?
Sure.
As a delegate on this last topic you just spoke to, would you be speaking with us about whether or not what our beliefs are in terms of the appropriate use of time and effort on
that issue?
On that issue.
So that I can tell you was very contentious, and I would say there was maybe, I mean, without counting numbers, I'd say over 40% spoke up saying, why are we wasting our time on this discussion? Stay in your lane. So this task force will really perhaps just really talk about whether or not there will be something more formal. It's sort of an ad hoc group, but I think that they heard loud and clear that there's a lot of great work that needs to be done on big issues related to education. Not that that's not important, but it was not something that there was consensus on.
I like your comment, stay in your lane. Not to ignore the subject, but stay in your lane. We have a lot of stuff we need to do.
Exactly.
I just wanted to make a comment regards to that, because prior to Delegate Assembly, we had our Board of Directors meeting where this was discussed. What was brought up from concerns for certain districts, and I think that was the viewpoint in bringing it to the larger group, a Delegate Assembly, was how the climate is affecting, for example, fires, the atmosphere, what happened in districts, and what do we need to do to reorganize. Like certain districts were having to deal with power outages and food services and things like that. So that's where the discussion had stemmed from. And then they brought it back to Delegate Assembly. So I know it's going to be ongoing. We're going to be continuously talking about that. But but again, it was a concern of some of the board members because in the past there's been some policy for CSBA, and in the policy language that wasn't necessarily designated there. So that's what my understanding was, some of the language, having that included, but then what stemmed from it was having a separate committee. But
right, and then and I made the comment during deliberations that we're all big proponents in terms of CSB of local control, that if this is a hot pressing issue in your respective communities, have at it.
Go to work with your local
And then, and then regards wildfires, there's no consensus in terms of some of the causes, are man-made, just oversight and neglect and things like that. So just a big topic, and we have a lot of important issues like closing the achievement gap to focus on.
Madam Chair, if I can make some addition to Bobby's report on our 2x2 with the CSD. I think I want to commend our partners at the CSD and share with the rest of you on the board that we had a really robust discussion, and really just the beginning of a longer discussion that is going to take place at the staff level about better collaboration among our districts, and really using a revision or at least analysis of the existing MOU as a standing point. So right now it's financially, it's in our benefit. The district recently has been writing the CCSD a check at the end of the year. They're interested in finding maybe additional services of ours that they can use, which would mean we wouldn't have to write them a check at the end of the year, I think. So it was just, I think, a great example of why we do these 2x2s, and I want to thank our partners at the CCSD for their collaboration.
Thank you. Superintendent?
Just a couple things very quickly. First, happy holidays to all. I know the idea that the decade's coming to an end, someone brought that to my attention the other day, and I just had a hard time grasping that concept. But I know how hard our people work. You see it with the team that's still here, and you saw it with some of our staff with all the programs that we recognized tonight. So I just want to say thank you to each and every person that's part of our community and part of our district and doing work for kids. I also want to say thank you to the board for taking on this challenging piece with regards to elections. It's not broken. This board has proven that what we currently do is not broken. And I respect each of you for the work you do and for being part of the team. And I have the same fears down the road of what the polarization that could happen based on this change. But I also want to make sure we're clear that we have the opportunity to set some criteria that can have an influence and maybe not allow that to happen based on some of the work. So the work you're going to do is going to have an impact for years and years to come. And so we need to take that work, and I know you will, but take it very seriously. And how we set the criteria and how we set the process moving forward, you're going to have an impact long after your term on the board is done. And I'm long gone if we do this right. So I just look forward to that work together.
Thank you. Other items from the floor, Mr. Forcino?
Other items from the floor, CSBA conference. The first day I attended a legal symposium for experienced board members. The morning session was absolutely incredible, and I gathered a number of materials and made a number of notes that David and Chris and our new president and I will have an opportunity very shortly after the new year to sit down and explore some interesting ideas.
Excellent. Thank you. Ms. Chair-Espinoza?
I would like to note both the events at Pleasant Grove High School in the last couple of weeks with respect to the incident of racism that was suffered, unfortunately, by one of our students, and also the response to it at every level. I'm particularly proud of the students, how they really took ownership and said, no, we don't stand for this. Hundreds of students on campus showed up to show support to not just the individual student involved, but to all Muslim students on their campus. I want to note a rare moment of positive coverage from the Sacramento Bee. So many thanks to our communications shop. It's not often that someone says we should be held up as an example, at least in the press, and we certainly appreciate that. I think that we represented ourselves in a very honest way, which is the way we've been trying to do this, which is to say we are by no means done. We are by no means an example of perfection, but we are marshaling all of our resources to try to address this terrible tenor of the national conversation and the way our students are living it out. So I want to really recognize all involved, but particularly our students, the Muslim Students Association at Pleasant Grove High School. Just so proud of those future leaders.
Thank you. Ms. Martinez-O'Leary?
Just want to add, I attended a workshop during CSBA conference with Ms. Ellen on the 2020 census, and they gave some suggestions or ideas of getting parents to fill out the census forms at different school districts. They were trying kiosks and different protocol or ways to outreach to get people to report. So there were some suggestions. There was also some websites, and I know my colleague may mention a few others, so I just wanted to mention that too.
Thank you. Mr. Madsen?
Yeah, I just have one thing I would like the board to be conscious of, and the superintendent on future agenda items, is a safety and security presentation to the board as we move forward into the year 2020. A lot of things are happening all around in various districts, and I would like, since we have a assistant director of safety and safety security manager, I think we need to have that opportunity that they can present to us and the public as to where we are with our schools and the progress we're making,
It's scheduled for January.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, you're ahead
Ready
of me.
to go.
All right,
I'm
thank
already
you.
on it.
Good. All right.
I mean, we attended various workshops. I want to commend Crystal on her presentation. You did an excellent job. And the 2020 census was very important, making sure that everybody counts. Everybody, body counts. It impacts all aspects of our lives. So whatever efforts the media, we do to make sure that families feel safe and report everyone, including infants, the better. Thank you.
Thank you. I also attended the census presentation and agree that it's very important that it is not a partisan issue. It is not. It is a plain fact that by reporting we receive funds. So it's very important. I know SAC SCOE has a program, and I believe we're in contact with them. So anything we can do to make sure all our people get counted, because all our people count.
Can I quickly make a comment, just echoing what Nancy had said? You know, Beth and I have friendships with a lot of people who have kids at PG. If you talk to the kids that go to school there about what the campus feels like and what's important to them, what you get are positive responses with respect to the work we've done and the work they've done. If you talk to them, you don't get the negative stuff that we hear about all the time, and about what a terrible job we're doing, not taking ownership, all this crap we hear all the time. We're doing a great job, and if you talk to the kids, you will be reinforced that the message is getting across. And like Nancy was saying, that spontaneous demonstration of the kids in support, that's what the kids are like. Are there situations? Yeah, and they're going to be everywhere. But for the most part, it's really healthy. And we need to to just accept that there will be people who have to make issues of non-issues. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. This meeting's adjourned. I don't know military time, Chet, at 9:21. It is not. It's 9:39. Thank you.